Good afternoon. I'd like to call the Human Resources Committee to order. It is now 6:01 on October 16th, 2009, and we are at Nashua High School North. You will see a revised...
We have to do attendance.
That's right, sorry.
That's okay. All right. Whoop. Okay. Ms. Timmons?
Here.
Ms. Porter is here. Ms. Oden is not here. Ms. Van Twyver is not here, but we have Ms. O'Gara.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Okay, we received a revised personal recommendation dated October 16, 2019.
Okay, I make a motion to accept the revised personnel recommendations dated October 16th, 2019.
I second that. Any questions before we go on? Do you notice the difference between number 2? I'm just trying to make a and the old one. So, and number 2, we upped the salary for Susan Cooper at $53,683.
Right.
And that's the only thing I see that's different.
And we've
from the-
added 5, 6, and 7.
And we added 5, 6, and 7.
Yep. Okay,
Okay,
all looks good.
all in favor? Oh, we have to do a roll call.
I don't think we do because nobody's on the phone. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Okay.
Motion passes.
Motion passes.
2 to 0. 2 to 0. Passes 2 to 0. Okay.
Before we close, I want to know if there's any other discussion regarding human resources.
Not as far as I know.
All right, everything's up to, and we're good. All right, so I move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And then-
Okay.
Okay, we are adjourned at, we're going to call it 6:05.
Okay.
Right. Good evening. It is 7:05 p.m. and we are in the Nashua High School Boardroom, and I am calling this meeting of the Nashua Board of Education to order. Mr. Guarino, could you please call the roll?
Ms. Oden is not here. Ms. Raymond?
Here.
Mr. Coffman? Here. Mr. Mosher?
I'm here.
Mr. Mosher is joining us by telephone. Are you by yourself tonight, Mr. Mosher?
I certainly am.
Thank you. Ms. Van Twyver?
Present.
Mr. Guarino is here. Ms. Hohensee?
Present.
Ms. Timmons?
Here.
Ms. Porter?
Here.
Mr. Eade?
Here.
Ms. Scales is not present.
She's running late.
Oh, she's running late, okay. Also, we have Dr. Mosley. We have Dr. McKinney.
Here.
Ms. Fitzpatrick.
Here.
Mr. Donovan.
Here.
Ms. O'Gara.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Guarino. If you could please read the prayer for us, if everyone would please stand.
I just wanted to mention that participation in our prayer is voluntary. The Nashua Board of Education does not condone or advocate for any specific religion or for religion at all. Almighty God, we have the high honor and the serious duty of managing the educational institutions of our beloved city. In our common endeavors, may we find a spirit of unity and understanding which will enable us to face our multiple problems with an objective mind, with justice and charity for all, so that any and all decisions made by us will be for the betterment and greater happiness of all of our fellow citizens. Amen.
Amen.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Guarino. If we could all have a moment of silence, I'd like to have a moment of silence for Rick Fahrenkopf, our IT director, who passed away last week. Thank you, everyone. Now, if Mr. Eade, if you could say the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you. So the first item on the agenda this evening is an introduction to our ELL Communications Coordinator, but I understand that she was unable to make it tonight. So we're going to move right along. Nashua is fortunate enough to have a number of Merit Scholar finalists, and so Dr. Mosley and I would like to recognize these students for all of their hard work. And if everyone could just bear with us for a second.
Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to take this opportunity to publicly acknowledge our kids and what they've done for our community and representing us well. I'd like to take this opportunity to talk about the Merit Scholar Program, the semifinalists. Congratulations to all those that have been acknowledged. You are joining us tonight. The College Board recently recognized all 9 of you because of your success on the College Board PSATs. You all scored very high on your PSATs, and congratulations. Our audience knows that the Merit Scholarship Program is one of the most prestigious scholarship programs in the country. Eligibility include residency requirements, commitment to studying full-time at an accredited high school, and demonstrated leadership and academic achievement. You are exceptional, not only because of the recognition for the College Board that brings you here tonight, but also because each of you are self-starters. Among you, you are President of the Math and Honor Society, team leaders for TSA and DECA, co-president of TSA and Debate Club, president of the Student Senate, president of the National Honor Society. I could just keep going, president, and so on, and so on, and so on. So I'll just read all the presidents. President of the Wall Street Investment Club, president of the founders of the Ethic Bowl Club, president of the Varsity Policy Debate Club, captain of the Economic Quiz Bowl, president of the Programming Club. And all these are just samples of the many leadership roles our students have stepped up to serve. You are the most accomplished and promising students who are looking to attend some of the most prestigious and competitive universities in the world and in the United States. At these universities, you will study business law, science, research, politics, engineer, business and marketing, computer science, economics, biology, bioengineering, and entrepreneurship. Make some money. All of you have taken all the advanced courses in math, science, and economics, but it was particularly encouraging to learn about you individually. As I call your name, I'm going to read a little brief vignette of you, and if you're not here, I'm still going to read it anyways. So I'd like to start off with Tanisha Aspirata. Is that you here? Aspirata, excuse me. By the way, you can blame Keith Richards for the pronunciation of these names at the last moment, so I apologize. Aspirata, please stand. Tanisha Aspirata was awarded the University of Michigan Book Award and graduated from the Sashu Bharati School of Language and Culture, proficient in Hindu and Indian culture. She would like to pursue a career in business and law. Congratulations. Anaya Bashi, please come to the podium. Was recognized with the WPI, for those of you who are not from Massachusetts, that's Worcester Poly Institution, correct? Polytech, excuse me. A Junior Book Award for her leadership in STEM field and is considered studying in the science and research, building on her work and research through opportunities for high school students through Harvard University, Boston Leadership Institution, UC Berkeley Pre-College Scholarship, Summer Program, and Beth Israel Deakin Medical School. Congratulations. Sahil Medakara, please stand. Sahil. Also won first place last year in the New Hampshire Science and Engineering Expo with his research in the field of behavioral science. He's also an entrepreneur and founded a mobile application development company. Good for you. We're going to ask you for a loan after this is all done. And he is president of the Technology Student Association at the South. We are encouraged to learn of your interest in pursuing studies in cybersecurity. Interesting, it's good. Because we need to do all we can to protect our data and information system. Congratulations. George Ead, please stand. We all know George. He's going to be here with us for a while tonight. Thank you, George. Student rep here at the National Board of Education. Politics holds a great interest for George, and he is the president of the South Teenage Republican Club. He also volunteered for several local candidates for local and national office. No doubt, George has an interest in participation in politics and will continue this interest in college. Congratulations, George. Anish Kamela, please stand. Won first place last year at the New Hampshire Science of Engineer Expo with his research on Hawthorne effect, also known as the observer effect. I actually have no idea what that is, but I'm sure it's pretty good. Studying how behavior is, what's going to, well, we'll find out. It's going to tell us how behavior is different for those left alone as opposed to those being observed. No doubt your work in several research opportunities in the Boston Leadership Institution, as well as your interest in playing tennis and chess, speaks to your penchant for strategies, as well as your aptitude in creating creative thinking and patience. Congratulations. Jeffrey Lamb has a great mind for business and marketing, which he intends to pursue in college. He is also self-employed as a YouTuber.
Yeah.
Want to give a shout out to your channel right now? He recently created a video through the Nashua Prevention Coalition for a local marketing company titled Be Kind, Good, which was played as a commercial at Chuck E. Cheese. Jeffrey is also, well, Chuck E., the movie theater, and it could be Chuck E. Cheese, they do sell cheese there. Chuck E.'s, right? Chunkies, right. Jeffrey is also engaged in local politics and takes part in local campaigns. Congratulations. Brandon Yang. Brandon Yang, please stand. Blended interest in economics and biology, bioengineering. Brendan was the captain of the South team that won the 2019 Harvard Pre-Collegiate Economic Challenge and was one of 100 students from across the United States, across the U.S. last year to win the Emperor Science Award. Locally, Brennan is invested in volunteer at the Southern New Hampshire Medical Center as an emergency room assistant. Congratulations. And finally, who's the other? Two? Ruben Zhao works this summer as a researcher and scholar, conducting research through the MIT Computer Science and Artificial Intelligence Lab, and study high-tech course through the MIT Lincoln Lab Beaver Works Summer Institute, exposing him to the field of engineering research. Ruben also has an interest in politics and was appointed New Hampshire Legislative Youth Advisory Council, offering feedback on a potential legislation. Congratulations. And finally, who do we have? James Maddock. All right. James excelled in the field of mathematics and was awarded the Harvard Junior Book Award last year. He's an avid outdoorsman and is a highly successful member of the North Country Community and Track team. We expect he will run away in the field of computer science and engineer. Congratulations. Give a round of applause to all of our students.
Congratulations to all of you. You do not have to stay for our whole meeting. Except for George.
They're gonna take a picture. They're taking a picture.
All right. Nobody wants me in their picture, so this is good.
And congratulations, parents. Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Coffman. Okay, I think we'll move right along after that, but I must say I am so inspired by those students, and I hope other people are too. Those are amazing accomplishments. All right, so the next item on our agenda is the consent agenda. Did anyone have anything that they would like to remove from the consent agenda? Mr. Coffman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In specifically the Curriculum Committee minutes of October 7th and the Finance and Operation Committee meeting minutes of October 10th. I believe they were at best posted today. They certainly weren't available when the packet came out. So I ask that they be pulled, please.
Okay. Any other items or objections to the consent agenda? All right, seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of those two meeting minutes.
So moved.
Okay. Do we have a second? Thank you, Mrs. Twyver. Miss Twyver. Oh, it's been a very long. Miss Van Twyver. I apologize. I'm having some difficulty getting words out this evening. Okay, so we have a motion and seconded to approve the minutes with the exception of the 10-7 Curriculum Committee and the 10-10 Finance and Operations. Please call the roll, Mr. Guarino.
Excuse me. Approve the consent agenda.
Yes, consent.
You
what
said
did I say?
minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I couldn't approve the consent agenda. It is true. I'm having difficulty getting words out today.
Ms. Raymond?
Yes.
Mr. Coffman?
Yes.
Mr. Mosher?
Yes.
Ms. Van Twyver?
Yes.
Mr. Guarino votes yes. Ms. Hohensee?
Yes.
Ms. Timmons?
Yes.
Ms. Porter?
Yes.
Motion carries 8-0.
Okay. So the Curriculum and the Finance Committee minutes were removed from the consent agenda. Does anyone have any discussion or motions they would like to make regarding those minutes? Mr. Coffman?
Only that they be approved at the next board meeting, so we'll have a chance to look at them.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any objections? Seeing none. Are there any communications outside of the consent agenda? I don't see any. So that brings us to the public question and comment period related to items on this agenda. If someone could please grab the sign-up sheet for me. If you have not signed up, please take the opportunity right now to do so. Yes, we will start with Mr. Marcoux because I saw him be the first person to write his name on that list. I would like everyone to remind everyone that we have a 15-minute time limit for public comments. I do not intend to cut anyone off, but I would ask everyone to be concise and keep your comments to items on the agenda and within a couple minutes. Thank you, Mr. Donovan. All right, Mr. Marcoux.
Adam Marcoux, live at 4 Jaloria Lane. I'm president of the Nashua Teachers Union. I just wanted to comment on two policies coming to the board tonight. The fire safety policy was in question the last meeting and got kicked back because there were some open-ended things and concerns, and I think that the cleanup makes sense and will leave us with very few questions on what we can and cannot use in our classrooms for extension cords, etc. I looked at the proposal to JIC and the changes to the vaping, adding vaping to the list with the tobacco and cigarette policy. And I'm glad to see that added. I'm also glad to see that that was changed or is proposed to change from a Class 3 to a Class 2. And I was very excited to see the addition of language that would provide education to the students in question when appropriate. And I guess my only question is who is responsible for that? I know we had an excellent presentation on vaping and the dangers from, thank you, the Prevention Coalition. So I just had that question, and I did read the emergency amendment that was proposed by Mrs. Hohensee, and I think on the surface, we need to take a look at that, and what she's proposing I don't think is out of left field. I guess my only concern and why I would encourage that it go to policy before anything happens with it is the video recording language that's included. I don't want that to be inciting kids to whip out their phones and record and post these every time. Like, is that gonna make it worse? Is it gonna make it better? I'm all for these issues, whether it be at the elementary level, the middle school, the high school, wherever they're happening, to be addressed swiftly and by policy as stated in JIC. I just don't know if that will make it better or worse, because last year there were rumors that there was this Fight Club post thing on YouTube or Instagram, and they were each rating each other's fights. So I just want to make sure that we're mindful of what we're doing, and I think a good discussion could happen at the policy committee to incorporate some of these suggestions into the policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marcoux. All right, the next person on my sign-up list is Paula Finn. If you could please come down.
I'm not sure if I can do this right now or if I have to wait. It's about bullying.
Okay, so I'm sorry, you're not being picked up by the microphone.
Oh.
So do you have a comment that is related to one of the items on the agenda?
No, this is about the bullying.
About the bullying. So then you would, if it's not specifically about items on the agenda, then we would ask you to wait till the end of the meeting comment period.
Okay.
If it's related to Ms. Hohensee's proposed language, then we could do it now.
Okay, no.
No?
Can I move to suspend the rules, because we don't want people waiting 2+ hours. We have 3 non-public sessions. They could be waiting a long time, and there's not that many of them, and it's delightful to have the public that comes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Coffman. And I don't think we need discussion on this. Anyone? No? I don't see any discussion. Mr. Guarino, could you please call the roll on the motion to suspend the rules to allow all public comments at this time? Is that correct?
Yes.
Ms. Raymond?
Yes.
Mr. Coffman?
Yes.
Mr. Mosher?
Yes.
Ms. Van Twyver?
Yes.
Mr. Guarino votes no. Ms. Hohensee?
Yes.
Ms. Timmons?
Yes.
Ms. Porter?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-1.
Okay. Well, we have just moved to waive the rules and allow all public comments on any topic that the public would like us to be aware of. So thank you for your patience, and please proceed. But make sure that you're speaking into the microphone so that we can all hear you.
Okay.
And so if you could just repeat your name for the person who does our minutes.
Oh, Paula Finn?
Okay. And you're a Nashua resident?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
There's been a lot of bullying in the schools lately. There's over 3.2 million students are victims. 87% students believe schools respond poorly to bullying. I fully agree. Schools are taking hits of $2.3 million in lost funds and expenses as a result of low attendance and various types of disciplinary actions. I would like to know how we can end up going forward and stopping all of this if there is a way that we can do a boot camp for these kids, or holding parents responsible for what these kids are doing, and not having to jump through hoops because you have to have specific wording on everything that you try to place. I know when my daughter got bullied and beat up, we had to go through a ton of different stuff that none of us knew you had to go through. And it doesn't state it in the computer systems, it doesn't state it in any of the books, nothing on all the little loops that you have to jump through in order to report a bullying. I noticed we ended up having to go through calling all different people, and the school pushed us to the superintendent's office. The superintendent's office pushed us to the city. The mayor's office pushed us to Concord. When we called Concord, they pushed us to somebody else. And then we were told when we ended up emailing that there were specific words that had to be used before they would even look at our bullying. So there has to be more than putting videos out there, or, you know, we're begging teachers, and there's only so much that teachers can do. I mean, you know, probably cops in every school all day. The funding has to be there somewhere to help these kids. The suicide rates of kids is amazing. It's unbelievable. Between the suicide rates, the drugs, the alcohol, there has to be a stop to this somehow. And I mean, I ended up having a principal go after me. He literally, we were at a meeting with my daughter and her friend because they both got beat up. And I said to the principal, if this was your child, what would you do? And he said, leave my child out of it. And I said, no, if this was your child, what would you do? And he literally threw his chair back, like pushed his chair back, hit it off the filing cabinet, and came at me. The assistant principal was sitting right there and did nothing. If this was a teacher that got beat up or got hit in the middle of this fight, something would have been done. Or if it was a teacher's child, something would have been done. Unfortunately, our kids, nothing is being done. They're getting pushed aside, and it's getting ignored. And all I got for years, the whole year, was, well, we didn't see it. We didn't hear it. It was a small school. Fairgrounds, that little girl, she didn't deserve what happened.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Spin. I really appreciate you taking the time to come out here tonight and share your story and offer some suggestions about this topic.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, next on the list is Tom O'Loughlin.
Thank you.
Thank you. If you could please state your name again and your residence for the...
Tom O'Loughlin. I'm at 9 Nickel Lane.
Thank you.
This really rolls right into the last speaker. I felt as if I was maybe unprepared, but it seems like I wasn't. It was really easy for me to find out from the JIC what happens after the fact. It's pretty easy to find out what happens when a teacher and there's a complaint from the teachers within the union. It's very easy for that to happen. What I couldn't find anywhere is the backing for the parents. How do the parents know what a process is? And that goes into how do you get pushed around? How do you go from hop to hop to hop? And what I was hoping for was you to provide us a link specifically for what parents have to do to preempt any type of situation that went viral from fairgrounds. And I guess the question is, does that exist? I've never had a problem. I'm a long time from Nashua, just recently in the school system with my daughter, and I wanted to look to say, hey, ahead of time, if anything were to happen, what do I need to do? And it's not there, at least that I could find. And so if it exists, if it could be more present or more searchable on the website, or if it doesn't exist, what would it take to get that policy documented so that way everybody can know exactly what we have to do before it's too late.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. O'Loughlin. Ms. Van Twyver, did you have something? No? Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. O'Loughlin. Ms. Johnson?
Good evening. My name is Paula Johnson. Glad to see that there's two Paulas in the room tonight. I live in Nashua.
Oh, you're not getting picked up by the thing.
Paula Johnson.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nashua. You know, what happened at Fairgrounds Junior High brings back a little bit of memories to me. I had a child that was bullied at Ledge Street in the 6th grade, and I begged the principal back then, please, let's get this reconciled. Let's get this issue changed, cleared up. Bring in the police. Let's talk to all the kids. Let's get this resolved. My son graduated from Ledge Street back then, many, many, many years ago. He went to Elm Street Junior High. The issue didn't stop. It escalated to the point that 2 girls were beating him up. And I always taught my son, never hit a girl, never hit anybody, and he never did. And I guess what brings the memory back here, Elm Street Fairgrounds. Rather than taking care of the perpetrator, the people who were hurting these children, the victims get moved to another school. My son had to leave all his friends at Elm Street that he went to Ledge Street with and had to go to Fairgrounds because we didn't deal with the issue in elementary school, and it escalated to 7th grade. This was back in the 90s. We're talking 2019 now. When I sat on this board in 2000 to 2001, we were dealing with the bullying policies. We were just implementing them. Who would think 19 years later, this whole thing would be talked about again? Kids are unsafe in their environment where they go to school every day, which should be safe for them. I remember my oldest one was bullied by teachers in the system. I used to say, if I ever did that to my child, they would take him away from me for child abuse. Then when teachers said to me, when my youngest one was in school, I'm sorry, Mrs. Johnson, they made me do it. The administration made you do it. I get what it's like to have kids bullied in school, being victims. And here we are in 2019, and I read what the union leader wrote today. The headlines, state weighs what to do about violent kids, and schools afraid to stop them. Why are we afraid to stop them? Why are they in the classrooms? Why are they even in the schools? If something happens and they beat somebody or throws them on the ground like that video, I thought that was horrifying. I mean, who would think that kids would be this angry? But this whole country's angry about something right now. Everybody hates everybody. So if adults feel this way, of course, it filters down to children. They pick up. But to have violent kids, they should be expelled from school. End of story. They should not be transferred to another school. Victims shouldn't have to leave their school where their friends are. This is a sad thing for kids, our students in this school, and you need to do something with the policy. And whatever has to be done, it needs to be corrected so the victims are not victims again at the schools. Get rid of the perpetrators. There should be a zero-tolerance policy, zero tolerance. And I always talked about that on the board. If kids busted a wall in school, I remember one of my board members say, but we have to love them and hold them and embrace them. No, there has to be a consequence for bad behavior. And we're not doing that anymore because we're so afraid to offend somebody. We're afraid to hurt their feelings. But what about the victim? They're hurt emotionally, physically, but that's okay. It's about time the school district and the board steps up to the plate that no student, no child goes to school and comes home hurt. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Sarah Wessel? I apologize if I butchered your last name. Well, if you could pronounce it properly into the microphone and state your residence, I'd appreciate it.
Hi, my name is Sarah Wessel. I'm at 9 Percheron in Nashua. I guess I'm going to echo what other people have said. I have lots of things that I want to talk about, but I'm going to keep it as small as possible. I'm finding the more that I'm digging, the more that there is no accountability within the administrations of the school when things get pushed under the rug. I understand that we can't talk about specifics of what's happened because what happened at Fairgrounds is under investigation, and that's fine. But I'm going to tell you my personal experience with what has happened at Fairgrounds. As a parent of a child that's at that school right now, after I watched that video and the girl had the same backpack as my daughter, I just about flew over to the school. And there was zero, and I do mean zero, communication from the administration to the parent community of that school for over 48 hours. We got emails about fundraisers. We got emails about PTA stuff. We got emails about spirit wear, but there was not one email addressing what had happened. And I understand that there are privacy issues, but I have a child that I need to feel I can send to school in a safe environment. So the fact that that went viral, something needed to be said. I was assured that something would be sent out the day that it happened. That didn't happen. I was also told that there was an assembly the next day with the children going over things. That also did not happen. If by assembly they meant a 3-second announcement over the PA system, that happened. The assembly happened a few days after that. I feel for both sides on these situations because obviously anyone who goes to that level has some issues, and I want to see things resolved for both sides, not just the victim. I want to see something done for all of the students of Nashua, and it's not happening. Kids are getting transferred to different schools. No one's being held accountable for these policies. I went over the policies with a fine-tooth comb over the last couple of days, and I know from my children, they're afraid to even tell anybody what happens because nothing is done. And according to the policies, things are supposed to be done. There was a student in Fairgrounds that my daughter was with, and she was hit by a boy in class. The teacher did nothing. She then asked if she could go see somebody else to talk about it, and then that teacher talked to the child or whatever, but nothing was done. The parent wasn't notified. I mean, her daughter told her, but if my daughter got hit during school, I would expect a phone call from the administration at the very least. There's not enough being done, and I understand these teachers and administration are overworked, they're understaffed, and I have empathy for that. But the bottom line is our students need to be safe, and they need to feel safe when they're there. There's no ramifications for things that people are doing in school. I mean, the amount of foul language that's being spoken in the hallways by these students. For my daughter, it's kind of horrifying. I mean, maybe I live in a bubble, but it's not something that we are used to, and not something that I ever really want her to be used to, but there's no ramifications for that either. There should be. There should be something. If these kids are hitting kids in class and disrupting class because they don't know how to be respectful, there should be ramifications for that too. And there needs to be something put in place that is holding the administration accountable to uphold these policies that you all have worked hard to put together. And I hope to see something change real soon.
Thank you, Ms. Wessel. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for sharing your thoughts with us this evening. I know we're all thinking hard about what was shared here.
Can I make a comment? Can I come up? I didn't get my name on the paper, but can I make one?
Yes. Just please state your name and your residence into the microphone. Can you write it down?
So my name is Amy Dowdy. I live at 4 Michelle Drive. in
That was
Nashua.
really fast. Hold on. Zinni?
Amy
Amy.
Dowdy.
Dowdy. Thank you.
I live at 4 Michelle Drive.
Thank you.
I'd like to echo Sarah's concerns. I have a student at Elm Street, and I have a student at South. There has been zero communication about situations going on at the schools. Again, we received multiple emails on spiritware. We received emails about fire drills. I've asked my student at Elm Street multiple times if the two new administrators have taken any time to introduce themselves to the students there, and his answer repeatedly over the past 4 days has been no. I'd like to know why. If they're going to be administrators in a building of 6th, 7th, and 8th graders who are at a very vulnerable age, those kids need to feel safe. And I don't know that they do. They have two strangers in their building that have not taken time. They have not taken 5 minutes to introduce themselves at bus drop-off or during lunch or in homeroom. Quite honestly, as a parent, I find it appalling. That's all.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts. Okay, that concludes our public comment period for this evening. The next item on our agenda is the superintendent's comments.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for those comments. Certainly, I hear those comments. A couple things. Throughout the district, we've been working on a number of things, and to get back to some of the things we've talked about earlier, we've been working on promoting and talking about our strategic plan. And part of that has to do with going out and meeting with faculty, and part of it involves one-to-one conversations with the faculty on our progress, expectations. We have a number of committees that are taking form right now. That includes committees with social emotional, committees on class rank, again, committees on our instructional leadership teams at the building level, and so on and so on. So we've been working on that throughout the year. This year, it's been, everyone's schedule has been pretty jam-packed, so please stay tuned. The second piece to this is that we've also, and we will hear more about it. I encourage, there's some middle school parents out there tonight that we are embarking and certainly talking about Elm Street and all of our middle schools around the construction project. There's going to be some forums that parents and community members can attend to give feedback to the architects and our construction personnel on the desires, the expectations, and the vision moving forward. The expectation is that all three of our middle schools are going to get some form of whether it's a new building or renovation, that'll be determined, but yet it's important that our schools are what I say, evolving, but also in a way where our schools are making some improvements to its infrastructure. And again, that was part of the strategic plan. Finally, one of the things to get updates, I encourage parents and community members to go to our website to get updates on the happenings in our district, and certainly we will certainly give updates on any situation that occurs in our district on our website. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, we can't yell out things from the audience. It doesn't get picked up on the microphone, and then it doesn't get into the minutes. So we need to make sure that everything that is said gets onto our minutes, because I think that that's valuable information for us to have in the future. Thank you, Dr. Mosley. I do have a question about, you said forces are being established across the district. I know that the strategic plan called for a student behavior task force to tackle a lot of the things that we've been talking about today. Has that been established?
It's forming right now. We're still soliciting participation. And I just want to be very clear, it's not just at the middle school, it's district-wide.
Yes.
So it's at the elementary level, it's at the middle school level, it's also at the high school level as well. So it's to really take a deep dive into student engagement, but also behavioral pieces and how we can be proactive in making sure that our kids are getting what they need, an expectation in terms of how we approach kids who are struggling, who have challenges in the schools.
So right now, you're saying that the Student Behavior Task Force is, we're still soliciting membership?
Yeah, I think we have, I don't have a meeting date. I believe they're scheduled to have their first meeting sometime either this month or till the end of next month.
Okay. All right, thank you. And on the website, we have a description of all of our strategic plan task force. Ms. Porter.
So would it be, I brought this with me tonight because I know that people are probably not familiar with this. So I want to assure people that as we went through the strategic plan, this was a very serious topic that we had a lot of discussion on. So what we've done is there is a student behavior task force that, as Dr. Mosley mentioned, it's being formed right now. I actually spoke to a teacher who I know who is filled out. There's an application form to be on this. It's a very thoughtful group of people. So I'm going to read, it's a short description so that you'll understand what the mission of this task force is and how we hope that it's going to address your concerns, because they're important. So the Nashua School District will form a district-wide task force to examine and recommend developmentally and culturally appropriate norms for student behavior that align with the values of the district: integrity, trust, respect, empathy, and tenacity. This task force will explore the manner in which the district addresses student behavior through the lens of the whole child. Specifically, the task force will conduct an audit of the current discipline practices and policies to determine whether current practices are effective or in need of improvement. This task force shall, as part of their mission, form a cross-section of parents, solicit input, and provide a voice for our culturally diverse community. On an annual basis, the task force will examine the best practices and techniques for responding to student behavior at all three levels: elementary, middle, and high school. As a part of their work, the committee will review problematic challenges and trends within each school, current laws, and district policies to update student handbooks. In addition, this task force will ensure fair and consistent documentation, communication, and enforcement of behavioral standards across all schools. Twice per year, the task force will inform the Board of Education Policy Committee of its progress and aid in aligning district policies. Membership to the district-wide Student Behavior Task Force should be representative of applicable stakeholders, i.e., building administrators, a representative cross-section of teachers, a representative cross-section of school counselors, psychologists, and/or social workers, a behavioral specialist, and an ELL representative. So what we've tried to do is, in organizing this and the other task forces that are described in the strategic plan, is to put in a systemic way to address these problems from the viewpoint of the stakeholders and come up with a systemic way to align our policies, our behavior expectations, and get everything in line. So I know that this is on the website. You will find this in the appendices. It's Appendix J, which describes all of the task forces that are in place or are being formed right now. So the purpose of this is to kind of have a like an ecosystem of the way that concerns are addressed, and they percolate up. We want people who are on, I hate to say it, but like, interfacing with our students to have a great deal of input, to do the research. Those people, once they do the research, should come to the policy committee and to the full board so that we can take votes on things that have done in a systematic, thoughtful, and researched way, and not just kind of a Band-Aid here and a Band-Aid there, and it's just a strong reaction, which is justified. I'm not saying it's not to specific incidents that happen in our schools. So I know that this doesn't sound, it's not something that's going to happen by tomorrow. It's not. But I think that this is an important way to put something in place so that your concerns can be addressed. And I hope you noticed in here that a big part of it was communication. I had a lot of people who had concerns about that, and we hope to address that. So I'm glad to hear that the committees are getting going. We just approved the plan at the end of the summer. I know that September was, getting everything up and running in the school department, so we have to get our schools started. And now that we're in October, we really need to get these committees meeting. And this probably should be something that's going to be a priority for discussion once this committee gets going.
Thank you, Ms. Porter. I'm going to go around. Ms. Timmons, did you have a response to the superintendent's comments?
No comment.
Okay. Ms. Van Twyver, no comment. Mr. Coffman?
Yes, since the response was largely about the strategic plan, I just want to reference Ms. Porter's comment about the stakeholders that you just read off that list. I didn't hear the word parent. And I just want to make that observation. Now, there's strategy. Strategic plan addresses the future, right? 1, 2, it's a 5-year plan. From what I heard from the parents tonight, I'm a tactician at this point in time. I want to know, what are we doing now to resolve the concerns and issues and safety that the parents perceive, that the kids perceive? So to the parents, if I can speak to you directly, we have procedures in place. There are 3 policies. I think they're in the community section or the student section, I forget which. And they enumerate essentially an escalation process where the parent goes to the teacher, to the principal, to one of the 2 assistant superintendents here, finally to the superintendent, and then if you do not get satisfaction, you can come to the board and bring forward your issues to us. We sort of act as the court of last resort. We're kind of judge and jury is how it works. So we won't find out about your issue until it's presented to us at the back end of the process. But you need to follow that process if you are dissatisfied with the way things are being handled in your unique situation. The board is unable to intervene any step prior to that. And that's what we have for you to deal with what rightly you might believe as an urgent issue. But I just want you to know that's the process. We'll do what we can, and you'll notice the stakeholders did not include any Board of Education members either, which ensures that we can bring additional parental voice to it. That's not part of the stakeholders that are listed. You bring them to the policy committee, giving us recommendations to approve, but we're not in the process to input largely by this process. I'll stop now. I appreciate you coming here tonight. All I can say to you is keep coming back. Bring your issues to the board. We'll do our best, like we did tonight, to suspend the rules so you can speak, so you don't have to wait until the end of the meeting to bring up some other things. Parental involvement, presentations, discussion is going to move this a lot faster than you can imagine. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Coffman. Just a couple little things regarding your comments. The first is the policies you're referring to are KE and KEB. So if you were to just Google Nashua Board of Education Policy KE or KEB, it would come up very quickly for you, and then you could see the steps that Mr. Coffman was referring to. Secondly, I'd just like to say that the task force shall, as a part of their mission, form a cross-section of parents, solicit input, and provide a voice. So that's like right in the mission statement of the task force.
But not in the list of specific stakeholders mentioned by Ms. Porter that's in the document. And that's the problem, is a lack of consistency.
I suppose one could call that redundancy if it says it at the beginning. I think the point is we shouldn't argue about the task force. We should let it be formed, and we should also act now on the information that we have now. But these are kind of quibbles that are not moving us forward. And I think calmer heads need to prevail sometimes. We need to have discussions about this. So, Ms. Hohensee.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the superintendent for his comments, and I'm delighted that we had parents that came here and gave their opinions, and particularly where that we need a better process. We have policies, but we need a button for bullying to tell the process to the parents. It's very clear with the grievance process, all the different steps, how many days between the steps. It's very clear, and they have guidance with the union president. Parents don't have that guidance. So we need something that's better for them. And I think it was very clear tonight that what tools we've presented them are not sufficient. We've got policies, but it's hard for them to put it together in a clear and concise picture. And I think that should be something that we address. The strategic plan is a long-term solution. It's good to have that, but that's not immediate, which I think some of them are coming here for. And to get them involved in that process, we need to reach out to those parents that have this issue, invite them to join this process, whether being on the committee, whether as the members, and I as the board member don't know who the members of this committee are. The meetings should be posted, they should be open to the public so these parents can attend, so they can feel that progress is being made, so their student in the middle school is safe or will be safe, and they can contribute to talking to those people either during or after the meeting. It's got to be the community involvement. If you want the community to believe in their school, we need to embrace their contributions. I'm not seeing the board as being embraced, let alone the parents, who are even more important than the board. I would like to see all of this open and more transparent. What I'm seeing now is not sufficient. And part of it is not, until a crisis comes, do we really understand what we need to fix. This is a perfect crisis to get us focused on finding solutions for the parents and hopefully preventing it in the future. But it's going to require public attendance at those meetings, or let the board attend those meetings. Because I feel like the board members are being shut out. I'm sure they don't feel very included. So we've got to open up the process to make everybody involved. And hopefully we can do something in the interim to put a stopgap on the policy that didn't address the situation in Fairgrounds.
Hold on one moment. Thank you, Ms. Hohensee. We do have to wait until the next public comment period towards the end of our meeting. Mr. Guarino?
Thank you, Madam President. I want to thank the parents. I want to thank all the parents for coming here tonight. And I want to thank you for speaking up. And I just want to tell you that I am listening. We're all listening here on the board. Our board is open and transparent. Our strategic plan was advertised. We had lots of parents there, and they were part of the process. They are stakeholders. Our parents are stakeholders. I agree with you that our children need to be safe in our schools. They need to feel safe also. I agree. My my children, both of my children went through the schools from kindergarten through high school. My daughter is still at Nashua High South. I have been on that end where you're frustrated, you feel as though not enough is being done. And I have been on that end. My son went to Elm Street Middle School, and there were kids that were acting out there. But I just want to say that communication, we need better communication. I heard that too. I agree that we need better communication to the parents. So I'm listening. And I just want to tell you that there are teachers, principals, assistant superintendents, and superintendents. There's telephone, there's email. I used to pick my child up from Sunset Heights every day. I knew the principal. I used to see him every day. He knew me. So, and it's the same with Elm Street. I was there. I wasn't there every day, but I knew the principal. I knew the teachers. And just by being a parent, you know, you get to know. So if you do have a problem, there's, like I said, there's email, there's telephones, and you can just go there in person and get to know your teachers. And if you do have a problem, you have to be persistent. Like I said, I've been on that end. And I do agree, we need to make changes, like I'm listening, better communication, and you have to feel like there's more being done, and I think we can accomplish that. So I just want to thank you once again for being here.
Thank you, Mr. Guarino. Mr. Mosher, did you have a response to the superintendent's comments?
Well, I listened to him very carefully, and I think that he could have addressed the thoughts of the parents that had spoken, and a little bit more detail, and a little more concise. But we are grateful that we have somebody with the wisdom to do the strategic plan. But it was appalling when I listened to the parents about the students who get bullied. Now, I can sympathize with that, because I hate to just pull my age and say, well, gee whiz, when I was 1945, I got bullied in the school too, and that was a Catholic school. But I survived, and when I made known that somebody was hitting me, I just let them know that, hey, I don't like being hit, and it was taken care of. And now there's so many other things that we have to be careful of, because the laws have changed. You can't go around smacking kids with rulers anymore. But laws have changed, and the children have changed, and the society has changed so much that it's hard to keep up with.
Thank you, Mr. Mosher. So I appreciate Mr. Mosher's comments, and I'm glad that we're not hitting our kids with rulers. However, I agree with what people have said about not putting the onus on victims. The onus should never be on the victim. So I think that it's a good time for us to take some hard looks at some of our policies and procedures to make sure that we're doing the best thing that we can. Moving on, the next item on the agenda is student board member comments. Ms. Scales, would you like to begin?
Yes. Homecoming is November 26th. The North versus South game was October 4th. North won, by the way. Oh, football game. North versus South football game. The Powder Puff games, will be Wednesday, November 6th. E-block wars are coming up soon. That's when the freshman E-blocks versus each other, like they compete. And yearbook packages are due November 1st for seniors. And then New Hampshire College Day is November 15th. MPSATs were today.
Thank you, Ms. Scales. Mr. Eid? No, I'm sorry, ma'am. We have to follow the the agenda. We have work to do for the district as well, so we have to get to that. So, Mr. Eid?
Yeah, first I just want to clarify a few things about the BOE student rep procedures. So a number of legitimate concerns were brought up last meeting, so I'd like to clarify a few things to the board and to the public. In terms of who will be conducting the elections, it'll be the Student Senate with our advisor. And for qualifications, that was definitely a big issue, and it's a real issue. So in the actual legislation, it's same qualifications as those who run for office in Senate, and they have to meet those same requirements and fill out all the same paperwork. And so another thing is that we'll be putting these to test for the first time very soon, and there may be a few hiccups, but just like with everything, when you first put it to the test, but we'll work through them and make adjustments where necessary for the years to come. Also, senior pictures and quotes are due at South on October 18th, this Friday. However, if seniors want to get their picture in the yearbook and want to do it at no cost, there will be final picture retakes on the 25th. Also, speaking of yearbooks, there's this thing called a senior package, the fall senior package, and it's this great deal where seniors can get a yearbook, cap and gown, senior t-shirt, and a ticket to homecoming on November 14th all together. And those purchases are due November 15th. Like Jamila Shanti said, that the PSATs were today, and it's kind of a coincidence that we recognize the NMSC semifinals from last year on the same day as the PSAT today.
Yep.
And also AP exam registration is a lot earlier this year. The deadline is November 1st. It's much earlier than last year. And another thing is the season of college applications for seniors. And there's this thing on October 30th. It's called the College Financial Aid Presentation. And it'll be to students and families on the October 30th at 6 p.m. in the South Auditorium. And they'll be presenting to families and help NHEAF will be presenting to families to help them navigate through the financial aid process, like FAFSA and exploring scholarships. School counselors will also be there for any questions. NH College Application Day on November 13th at South, and this is another great opportunity for seniors to apply to any New Hampshire school, public or private, for free. They can submit on that day and apply for free. And so any interested seniors got to speak with a guidance counselor, and it's a really great opportunity. And finally, on October 28th at Nashua South, there will be the Nashua Regional College Fair from 6:30 to 8:30. It'll be in the school gyms, and there will be representatives from over 100 colleges around the area, and it's a great opportunity for students to meet admissions reps and ask some questions. For sports, like there's a powder puff November 14th, and as Jamila Shanti said, they're tied in the Battle of the Bridge. It's up to cheerleading to decide. And another thing for sports is that winter sports registration opened up yesterday, October 15th. And then finally, this is the last finally, I promise. I want to end with some good news. As of last month, Nashua students can now park at the public library for free. This happened after a group over the summer was formed called the Youth Advisory Council. Haley Sweeney and I were also in the group. They had a few students from both North and South, and we worked with Alderwoman Shoshana Kelly to draft legislation for free student parking at the library that eventually passed the Board of Aldermen. As of now, it is a pilot program, so it's going to last at least until the end of this school year, so students that are eligible for a library pass can present a valid Nashua school ID can have free student parking at the Nashua Public Library. That's all. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Mr. Eid. Ms. Scales, you had something else?
I'd also like to clarify some concerns about the BOE and officer elections at North. So last board meeting, there were some concerns and there's some confusion. So it was the officer elections at North where there was complications, not the BOE election. So I just wanted to make that very clear. And then the second was, I don't usually talk about myself, but it has to do with George and I, so I feel like it's valid here today. George and I were both nominated by our principals for USP. Okay, George, okay. For USP, the United States Senate Youth Program, so.
Wonderful. Congratulations to both of you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Sure. We have a request for you to explain it a little bit further.
But it's when so students are nominated. A principal from each school in the United States can nominate one student from their school, and then they have to send in an application, and the commissioner looks over it, and then they go through an interview process, and then 2 students from out of that state are chosen to go to the United States Senate Youth Program. So 104 students out of the United States go to Washington, D.C. for a week, and then all the participants who participate and end up, well, I guess leaving, graduating from the program, get a $10,000 scholarship.
Oh, wow. Wow. Please keep us updated. That's wonderful. Best of luck to you both.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is the Committee on Budget. We don't have a Committee on Budget at the current time.
Raymond,
Yes,
may I
Mr.
ask a
Coffman.
question? I'm curious when this board is going to discuss the state aid that has been granted. There's $1.4 million we know in one-time aid from the state.
We don't know
when
that
will-
at this point. We will discuss it when we have a number from the state.
Okay, thank
So
you.
it's premature to talk about money that we don't know how much or when. So,
Okay, thank you.
thank you. Committee on Finance, yes, Ms. Timmons?
I'd like to suspend the rules just so the public and the parents can get whatever they have to say out, because it's distracting and it's disrespectful when they heckle our student board members as well. I mean, because they're students too, as far as I'm concerned, that's a part of bullying. So I think we should let them finish what they need to say so we can move on peacefully.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Timmons. Is there a second to Ms. Timmons' motion to suspend the rules?
Second it.
I'll second.
Okay.
You second?
Second by Ms. Hohensee. Discussion. I'm going to say something. We had a long discussion earlier about bullying. We listened to people's thoughts and some very good suggestions about bullying. And now someone has decided to heckle us, and so we are going to change our rules to allow that person to not follow the standard. They missed their chance to speak at the beginning. An hour later, now they're asking us to change the rules for them. To me, that doesn't seem like a good example for our kids. But go ahead, Ms. Hohensee.
There's more than one person in the audience that's making noise. And it's not just tonight, it's many nights. I've had parents come here and didn't like sitting too close to some of the union reps because they would heckle. So I don't want to point a finger at anybody. People make comments. I support this because I'm delighted that parents are coming and letting us know. They don't understand the process. They only have this little window. And this is the first time they're coming and they don't, and I'm willing to give them a little latitude. When they come up here, I am certain that they'll be respectful, and I'm going to try to be respectful to them.
Thank you, Ms. Hohensee. Any other comments? Okay, please call the roll.
On the motion to suspend the rules, Ms. Raymond?
No.
Mr. Coffman?
Yes.
Mr. Mosher?
No.
Ms. Van Twyver?
Yes.
Mr. Guarino votes no. Ms. Hohensee?
Yes.
Ms. Timmons?
Yes.
Ms. Porter?
Yes.
I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 yeses and 3 noes. Motion to suspend the rules needs 2/3, right?
I believe we've met the criteria, 5 to 3.
Criteria? Okay, all right.
Yep, so the motion passes.
Motion passes.
So we will suspend the rules. How many individuals are asking to speak at this time? 2. Okay. Ma'am in the charcoal coat, please.
It wasn't me that you were saying was a heckler, because I have never been to anything like this before. So I was just trying to break in and see if I could.
If you could please wait and speak into the microphone so it could be picked up.
Could we?
I was, in fact, because you interrupted more than once. You were advised of the rules and then you did it again, and I just don't think that's a respectful way to behave.
I apologize. I've never been in this situation before, so.
So please state your name and your residence for the record.
Juliet Gilbert, 18 Upstown Drive.
Thank you.
I have a son in 8th grade in Elm Street Junior High. As far as I know, he's not being bullied. But with everything that's going on, I have asked him the situation, and he says he's not safe going to school. And I think it's awful that a child would go to school from home where he's safe and then go to school and feel not safe. So that's one thing that I wanted to say. The second thing I want to say is to you. I don't want to bring religion into this. However, you were at my church months ago when we did an outreach on Nashua, and we went and did a lot of things. We painted a fence for a school. We gave produce to the firefighters. We made up backpacks for the needy. We did all kinds of stuff, but I can't think of any of it that had to do with helping the students in class, anything that pertained to that. So we did a lot of good things for Nashua, but Nashua obviously has a huger problem than that, and we did not address that at all in the church. We didn't address it that day at all. We did a lot of things for Nashua, but that was not part of it, and that's just what came up on my mind at the last minute, because that's the first time I saw you or met you. I knew who you were, and I remember seeing you that day, and I remember how good we did for the city. But I'm not sure what exactly we could have done that day, but I know that if we can work together and do stuff for the city, then this is our city, and we can do other stuff and for our students in school. And that's all I had to say.
Great. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us.
Thank you.
Ms. Scales? If you could please speak into the microphone and state your name and residence.
Yes, Jamila Scales, 28 Marion Lane, Nashua, New Hampshire. I wanted to come up and speak on the bullying as well. I'm so glad you guys came out to talk about it, because it's really important, most because many kids go through it in school. And yes, I am someone that is spoken to about how parents do feel as though there is not enough done. And I'm going to agree, more can be done, and I know that. I'd like to see more done. And as far as the strategic plan, when I was listening to Mrs. Porter talk about the stakeholders, at the same time, I thought, what about parents and what about students being in that process? Because having students who have been bullied within that process may help the process. And having parents who've had students bullied would help the process as well. So I'm glad to hear that you guys will be addressing it. I'm glad to hear that it's important, because to all of us as parents who have had children bullying, it's important, because we know, and I know personally, that when a child is bullied, that anxiety to go back to school doesn't start at the school door at that point. It starts once they wake up and think about going back to school. And then it interferes with learning and the learning process. And that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Ms. Scales, for sharing your thoughts and your suggestions. I'm sorry, Paula
Finn.
Finn.
How can you guys expect our kids to be safe in school when Mr. Boardman is a principal at one of the schools, and he is the principal that came?
I'm sorry,
That's
we
not
can't.
appropriate, not
We
appropriate.
can't.
Not appropriate.
Okay, but you guys are saying how our children, you
Right,
guys
we
are doing
can't
everything
single
to
out-
keep them safe.
We can't single out individual staff members at a public meeting. It's simply.
When your kid comes home looking like
appropriate.
this,
Look, ma'am, we cannot single out individual
no, you
staff
can't,
members.
because you guys throw it under the rug.
What I would like you to do is to speak with Dr. McKinney, who is the assistant superintendent for the elementary schools.
about your
Why,
concerns.
so she can throw it under the rug too?
No, because he needs to be the person to work on it and to do the investigation. The board cannot do an investigation. We also can't comment on individual employees. So the best step is to talk to the assistant superintendent, give him all of your information so that he can work on launching an investigation if an investigation is warranted.
This is the problem.
I'm sorry.
Everybody throws everything to the next person.
Okay.
Nobody wants to hear it.
Thank you.
If I can,
Dr. Mosley.
just a couple things. I've heard from the public, I've heard from the parents, and I want to thank you again for coming out. Part of what we want to do is make sure, and I was very clear in this case with the Elm Street piece, is that there was a communication that was sent out. It was sent out hard copy to all of the kids. It was sent out in English. It was sent out in Spanish. Was. We're not here, and I can be happy to provide the public and the board that level of communication. The second thing is that I am not going to have an administrator, myself, or anybody else have their personal character or their reputation assassinated because of accusations. We have a process in place to give everyone, whether we agree with them or not, due process to make sure that they have a right to express their opinion and to go through it. Now, what was said about a principal here, I want the public and want the media to know that there was no substantiated evidence to support anything that was brought to this board at this point. Now that it was broached, we will investigate, but it won't be investigated and played out in the public arena where someone cannot defend him. It will not be played out. It will not be taken serious on a Facebook post or any type of social media. We have to be the models for our kids. And our kids need to see a process in place and see us agree to disagree, not throw accusations. And if there is a situation where we have to make a report, happy to take a name, happy to take a statement, and we will follow through. But as far as this process of making accusations in the public arena, it's not right. It's not. And it's not something I want or support, and I wouldn't want any of our kids to watch and see this. Let's follow the process. Let's go through that. And if, as Mr. Coffman said, there is a process in place. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam President, may I just say something briefly?
Yes, Ms. Hohensee.
I just want to explain that I think sometimes the public come here, they don't understand that the name of a person shouldn't be spoken. I know I went to alderman meetings years ago, and I learned that by watching. If this is their first meeting, I think we kindly tell them that there is a process, and please don't do that. But I don't want the parents to get the feeling that we're lecturing them when they don't even understand the process to come to us.
Thank you, Ms. Hohensee. I appreciate your comments. Ms. Scales?
Is this still like public comments, or like can we ask you a question?
I think the meeting has gone off the rails at this point. So,
yes.
Go ahead, ask your question.
So what's the process for teacher-student bullying? Because like there's student-to-student bullying, there's teacher-to-student bullying, which also happens.
If a student feels that they are being treated unfairly, or if they feel like they're being treated inappropriately by a teacher, the best thing to do is to either go to guidance or go to the principal. That way the principal can investigate and act on it if need be.
And then what would be the next steps from there?
From there, I would encourage the student to get their parent involved as well, but the next step would be to go up the chain. So principal, if you're not satisfied, assistant superintendent, sorry. If you're not satisfied with what the assistant superintendent has to say, you can go to the superintendent. And if you're still not satisfied with what the superintendent has to say, then you write to the board and you request a hearing. And the board will schedule a hearing where the parent can present their side, the superintendent can present why they made the decision that they made, and then we will make a decision.
Thank you.
Yep, Mr. Coffman, did I get some of that wrong?
Yeah, you skipped one part. So
Oh.
when I'll just call it a petition, when something comes to the board, the current policy that's recently been amended requires the board to vote to hear the complaint brought to us. So the board could vote not to hear it, even though you've gone through the process, 3 layers. The board could say no. So it doesn't automatically come to us for hearing. There's a safety valve or whatever that the board would need to vote to accept to hear the hearing before it comes to the board, at which point the parent could also, if they so choose, have it in public.
Yes,
So
at that
that's
point.
an option to the parent who would bring that forward on behalf of the student.
So the voting would be done in public or in private?
It's private unless the people involved agree to it being public.
Okay,
And
thank
if it involves a staff member or other students or names might be involved, those things have to be kept private. There's a number of laws that are applicable in that circumstance.
Just so people understand, we operate under the right to know law in New Hampshire. So there's a specific provision of the right to know law that gives us an exception. And one of those exceptions has to do with matters which, if discussed in public, likely would affect the reputation of any person other than a member of the board. So that's 91A32C. So that would, if we went into a non-public session, we would invoke that exception, go in, and it would be a non-public session. So that's the rules that we operate under.
Okay, thank you.
Madam President, there's 2 more steps.
Yes, Ms. Hohensee.
After the board, if you don't receive satisfaction, generally you can appeal to the State Board of Education, and after that, you can appeal to the court. So there's many steps. It's arduous. I sympathize.
Last comment, and then we really do need to move on. We have a number of items on the agenda that need to be addressed this evening. And if you could repeat your name, I know that you said it earlier, but this will help our transcriptionist make sure that she identifies everybody appropriately.
My name's Sarah Wessel. First of all, Dr. Mosley, I completely agree with you in the fact of, like, we need to do everything in decency and order. There's definitely a process that needs to be followed. I have some experience with this, but not like the Board of Education. I don't. This is all new to me, and I totally agree that we all need to be respectful, because really, arguing and being passive aggressive or condescending to any parents that come up here and vice versa, it doesn't really get us anywhere. So none of our issues really were addressed this evening. I get the task force thing, and again, that's a long-term plan. We really need 3 different types of plans. We need an immediate action plan, like immediate, not 3 weeks from now, not a month from now, immediate. We need a long-term plan, and I mean, if we can get more parents involved, I like the discussions that are happening about the task force. I know we can do something with that, but we also need something to bridge between the emergency plan and the long-term plan. Because all of these things that we're talking about and the steps that we have to take, again, I agree with you. Everything has to be done in a certain order, and so we can have records of everything, everyone can get due process and all of that stuff. In the meantime, we have children afraid to go to school. That is the problem, and nothing is being done about that. I understand that we have to, go to the school, then go to maybe the assistant superintendent, then go to you, or whatever. That takes a lot of time, and a child is going to be seriously hurt, I feel like, before anybody wakes up and does something. All of this stuff takes time, but there has to be something more aggressive done in the beginning, or I am afraid that something horrible is going to happen before anybody really wakes up. I am very thankful and appreciative for you guys suspending the rules and allowing me to speak twice. I guarantee you this will not be the last time you see me. And I hope that we can get more parents to come, but I would really appreciate some feedback from you guys on what we can do within the rules, within the regulations, within the processes of having something immediately done so that our children feel safe in our understaffed schools with administration that's not really held accountable to uphold the policies that are already in place. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Yep. All right, so we do need to get back to the agenda. There are other items on the agenda that are related to this issue, but we have items that are not, that do need to be done so that we can do the work of the school district. Okay. Committee on Finance and Operations.
They're all leaving. Is that going to be pulled? Point of order, is that going to be pulled because we don't have the minutes? That's why we made that rule, because sometimes when we don't have the minutes, then the proposals, the motions aren't even accurate. This agenda was written up before the minutes were out there.
Okay.
So unless there's something urgent, I think that we should postpone this till our next meeting.
Okay. Mr. Donovan, I understand the Eagle Scout project is supposed to take place.
I think we need to move on the Eagle, and I don't see any reason why we can't talk about the prevention grant too. I mean, these two items on here, they do need to be, we can't wait another month.
And we have all of the documentation from last week's packet because this meeting was moved.
Yes.
Correct? Okay. Mr. Guarino?
Thank you, Madam President. I move that we approve the Eagle Scout Service Project at Bicentennial Elementary School as presented by Colby Nichols.
Second.
Point of order.
Yes, Mr. Coffman?
Do we need to suspend the rules to accept this because no, we should, if you're going to do it legitimately, right? And one of my objections on the consent agenda with this, not having this part of the meeting, and I do support the Eagle Scout, and I will vote to allow that, is that there is an extreme error of omission here where this particular committee took action and it was not reported to the board. That's one of the reasons why I insisted that it be pulled from the consent agenda. The committee had voted unanimously to suspend any activity related to photovoltaic projects, and the committee reported that and voted on it. It's been omitted, and I have a problem. That's why I asked that it not be discussed.
Okay.
But I'll move to suspend the rules to allow the Eagle project and the contract.
Point of order, I have a motion on the floor already.
And I'm saying it's not legal because
you can't make a motion when I have a motion on the floor. Point of order, ma'am. I'm just making a point of order.
I don't have a gavel. I don't think this is something for us to argue about. We ought to not be arguing about Robert's rules. If we're arguing about Robert's rules, we're doing it wrong. I mean, pretty much. So, two things. One, if something didn't make it out of committee, it didn't make it out of committee, so it wouldn't be on this agenda, so we wouldn't have to talk about it. Two, if we're all in agreement to have the vote on the Eagle Scout project, I don't see why we ought to take a vote to take a vote. So Mr. Guarino's motion was made and seconded before your motion. So I suggest that we just proceed.
Point of order, we do that for HR every time. It's the parliamentary way to do it.
Fine.
Point of order, it's unnecessary.
Okay.
I already have a motion on the floor. This is, the rules don't, we're going by the rules.
Again, I don't think that it is productive for us to argue about Robert's Rules of Order. If it would, to satisfy people and make people feel comfortable that we're doing things appropriately, which is my goal, to go ahead and have the motion to suspend the rules, fine. I think we could have voted on it in the amount of time we argued. So let's just have the vote and move on. On the motion to suspend the rules, which was made by Mr. Coffman and seconded by Ms. Hohensee.
On the motion to suspend the rules, Ms. Raymond.
Yes.
Mr. Coffman.
Yes.
Mr. Mosher.
No.
Ms. Van Twyver.
Yes.
Mr. Guarino votes yes. Ms. Hohensee.
Yes.
Ms. Timmons.
Yes.
Ms. Porter.
Yes.
Yes, 7 yeses and 1 no. Motion carries.
Thank
The
you.
rules are suspended. We can take up the business of Committee on Finance and Operations.
Thank you. On your motion
To approve the
to approve
Eagle
the Eagle
Scout
Scout
project at Bicentennial Elementary School as presented by Colby Nichols.
was seconded by Ms. Timmons.
Ms. Timmons. Ms. Raymond?
Yes.
Mr. Coffman?
Yes.
Mr. Mosher?
No.
Ms. Van Twyver?
Yes.
Mr. Guarino votes yes. Ms. Hohensee?
Yes.
Ms. Timmons?
Yes.
Ms. Porter?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-1.
Okay, thank you. And I just wanted to commend Mr. Nichols for being willing to do this Eagle Scout project, for providing another developmentally appropriate and engaging play area for Bicentennial Elementary School. Thank you to him. Yes, Mr. Corino.
I move to approve the contract for services between Jeff Levin Coaching and the Nashua School District for up to $50,000 to be funded by the Dropout Prevention Grant.
I second it.
Okay. Did you wish to speak to your motion, Mr. Corino?
Nope.
Okay.
No, thank you.
Ms. Van Twyver?
I'd like to inquire about the dropout prevention grant. When did this come through, and did the board approve this grant? Because I would have voted against it if it did.
This is one of the federal grants that we get. We don't bring the federal grants roll over year to year. We don't every single year we don't bring Title I grant every year and ask for approval. We just take the grants from the government. This is about $8 to $12 million worth of our funding.
$8 to $12 million
Of
our
funding from federal grants, yes, and we have
for the
never.
dropout prevention?
No, for the total amount of grants, but we don't bring each one of the federal grants. We share them during the budget season, but we don't bring each one in front of the board. We've never done that.
Well, I remember the grant coming before this board one time before, and I voted against it because I don't think it's right to accept money when we don't have a dropout problem. And I would vote against it if it came before this board again.
Well, you have that right, but, I mean, if you have anybody drop out, I think you have a dropout problem, so, and we do have dropouts.
Okay.
Yeah, 1.3%, as Ms. Fitzpatrick mentioned the other night.
Thank you, Ms. Van Twyver, and thank you for highlighting the fact that we only have less than 2%, significantly less than 2% of our students not graduate. I think that's fantastic and should be applauded. Ms. Hohensee?
Well, thank you for that update, but in that context, if we have this money, is it only for dropout program, or can we use this money for something else? Is this an allocation from the 8 to 12 million that we could redirect?
No, you cannot. This grant, a federal grant, it's written, it's approved by the state. This grant was specifically approved by the Commissioner Edelblut. He took the grant, he took 3 items, this was one of the 3. He said, this is what you can use this grant for. Okay. Boom.
Can we use, follow-up, can we use this grant for, say, reading to prevent dropouts?
No, it's very specific. There are 3 items you can use it for. This is one of the 3. You cannot redirect the dollars.
No. I'm saying it's a prevented dropout to make sure that our students are literate and feel empowered to continue. What do we have to use this money for? How is it locked down?
The grant is sent to the state. The item, we applied for more money. We received about half of what we received last year.
Okay.
The writer of the grant, Mr. Chopa, had 6 to 7 items that he requested. 3 of the items were approved, the others were told he wasn't able to do them. They were very specific, they wanted those 3 items.
And can you tell us what those 3 items were?
One of them is an agreement with the Boys and Girls Club on mentoring and working with students. Okay. There's this coach, Jeff Levin, dealing with high school kids and potential dropouts. That's what he's done. We did this last year. This is the 2nd year we're doing this.
For clarification, he is not an athletic coach.
No, he's not an athletic coach, no. He's a
mentoring coach.
Mentoring coach, yes. He works with kids that, as the contract says, that are in danger of potentially dropping out or struggling with some things. I don't recall off the top of my head what the 3rd item is.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Van Twyver, did that answer your question?
Sort of. In other words, this Mr. Levin is going to be mentoring them on what? Coaching them on what? How to get a better grade?
Sure. How to work through the high school so that they can complete and graduate on time. There's kids, they're dealing with a lot of different issues. There's 25 students at each school that he works with. Sort of his,
25 at each school?
yes,
That's 50?
yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Guarino, could you please call the roll?
On the motion to approve the contract, Ms. Raymond,
Yes.
Mr. Coffman,
Yes.
Mr. Mosher,
Yes.
Ms. Van Twyver,
Yes.
Mr. Guarino votes yes, Ms. Hohensee,
Yes.
Ms. Timmons,
Yes.
Ms. Porter,
Yes.
motion carries 8-0.
Thank you. Mr. Donovan, was there anything else from finance?
No, as Mr. Coffman talked about the solar project, which there was a motion not to move that forward. Other than that, that was it.
So if we didn't move it forward, we don't
Point
need
of
to.
order.
Yes, Mr. Coffman.
The text of the motion that passed that committee 3-0 is not accurately portrayed, I don't believe, by Mr. Donovan. I move to suspend indefinitely any discussion, consideration, or approval of any photovoltaic energy project at the Nashua School District. That's what the committee approved,
So
3-0.
by that measure, we should not be discussing it.
No, yes, that is correct. We should
Okay.
not be discussing it.
Okay, moving on. Committee on Policy.
Okay. The first item on the Committee on Policy is Policy EBCB, which we had worked on in committee twice. We had amended it to add cords for up to, power strips with cords to 25 feet. So I move to recommend to approve Policy EBCB, Fire Safety as presented.
Second.
I have comments.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Mosher.
Yeah, I see one minor error
Okay.
on it here, and it's on the line that for lamps.
Okay. Which page is that on, Mr. Mosher?
Page 2 of 2.
Oh, page 2, down at the bottom, lamps. Yes.
Yes, and it says that household lamps are acceptable for use. However, the wattage of the lamp may not exceed the wattage limit posted on the lamp. Household lamps that use halogen or incandescent bulbs are prohibited. The error is in incandescent bulbs.
What?
99% of the bulbs that are being used are incandescent. And if we, as a policy not to use incandescent bulbs, there's going to be a lot of people sitting in the dark.
What about LED or fluorescent bulbs?
That is not an incandescent lamp.
Right. So
LED is a light-emitting diode. It's a solid-state device.
Right. So for example, in my home, we have switched all of our bulbs from incandescents to LED bulbs or fluorescent bulbs.
So what you're saying here is that you're not allowing them to use incandescent bulbs anymore? They
No,
have to
because
be-
they're a fire hazard.
No,
Yes,
they're not.
they,
We've been using them for years.
Well, I don't know what the fire marshal wants us to do. Go
I
ahead.
think that we should just take out the thing and say that halogen are prohibited, because halogen bulbs tend to run a lot hotter than any other bulb, any other type. But right now, if you consider incandescent bulbs, even Christmas tree lights, you know, the old ones, the C7s and C10s,
Mm-hmm.
they are incandescents, and they are 7 watt bulbs. If you have a night light with a single bulb in it, that's usually a 5 watt to provide some light so you don't trip. Oh, that's an incandescent bulb.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mosher. Mr. Guarino?
Thank you, Madam President. I have a question. It looks like that incandescent bulbs have been prohibited at least since 2017. That's the last time this was changed. We didn't discuss that at all in the new changes. So I'm wondering if anyone from the school administration can tell me, are we using incandescent? I can, it seems like we're probably using incandescent bulbs, I would imagine.
But this is for household lamps.
Right, right.
So if somebody brings in, you know,
Right.
an ordinary, that's not allowed.
I understand that. Does anyone know if incandescent bulbs are being used in classrooms or anywhere? No problem?
There's a lot of shrugs. Mr. Yeah.
Yeah, let me just qualify something here. You know, incandescent bulbs were not prohibited, but they were told not to use them, not to produce them anymore, because they were energy inefficient.
Okay.
And now we have those bulbs with the curly Qs and the light emitting diode.
Right.
And the curly Q ones are fluorescents, and they contain mercury.
Mm-hmm.
They would like everybody to use the light emitting diodes, the LEDs, because they are energy efficient and they do not have mercury in them.
Yes. So I just to clarify, right now, our policy says you can't use incandescents, and so that leaves people with the option of using the LED light bulbs. But you would like to allow people to use incandescents? And should this conversation go back to policy so that we can get the fire marshal to weigh in?
Yeah, because I want to take out the word incandescence because it's not prohibited.
Yeah. I think it ought to go back then. We should ask.
I think we should just
They've spoken twice on it.
do
I have
what
not been
Mr.
recognized.
Moshe wants, take out incandescent, because it's already gone back twice. And the household lamps, the wattage of the bulb may not exceed the wattage limit on the posted lamp, so I think an incandescent bulb would be safe.
It's saying that household lamps that use those are prohibited. It's the lamp that's being prohibited.
Yep. Mr. Coffman has been very patient.
You're right, it
Go
does
ahead.
say that, yeah. Yeah.
Go ahead, Mr. Coffman.
I happen to agree with Mr. Guarino in this instance. I think household lamps are incandescent. I think the issue is that
Household
they,
lamps that use halogen, you dumb fool.
Oh, Mr. Mosier,
Mosier, whoa.
we are not going to call names or disparage other board members.
I apologize.
Thank you. Mr. Coffman,
So-
please make your statement.
so I think there's two things here. The production of incandescent bulbs is what stopped at the federal level. Okay, so it's going to be difficult to get new ones. There may be some lying around, and they could have a life of 5 or 10 years, you know, intermittent use. So I think the issue here is about replacement of the bulbs. For example, let's say somebody has a desk light, and it uses an incandescent bulb. They may not be able to replace it in the future, so they'll replace it with an LED. If there's any restrictions, I would talk about the restriction of a replacement lamp. I wouldn't mess with whatever's in place unless it's halogen. I would allow it to continue, and I would just say you have to replace
No.
with LED.
No, Mr. Guarino,
I just want to agree with Mr. Mosher.
wait,
I
no,
think Mr.
no,
Mosher
no, no,
makes
no,
sense.
wait, Mr. Guarino, you've spoken several times on this.
Oh.
At this point, it is,
Everybody else gets to speak over and over and over again, but I guess I'm limited. So
Mr. Guarino.
Rules are different for me, I
Mr.
guess.
Guarino,
Oh, it seems that way.
that is unfair.
Well, it's unfair to me, I agree.
No, take a deep breath and wait one moment. We have a motion on the floor. People are talking about changing wording. So we either need to make an amendment to the motion to strike this word, or we need to vote on the motion, or the third option is to send it back to policy. At this point, my suggestion is we send it back to policy, because this is a lot of conversation for 10 of 9, and we haven't even gotten to the second page of the agenda.
If you give me a chance to speak, I would just like to agree with Mr. Mosher, make it very simple, make an amendment and take out the word incandescent, so it'll just say household lamps that use halogen bulbs are prohibited. We can take out incandescent, we can move on. And I think that's the simplest thing. I don't want this to go back to policy for a third time. Doesn't make any sense.
Is there a second to Mr. Guarino's amendment?
I second it.
Mr. Moser seconds it. All right. Mr. Coffman?
Discussion. You made the point, Madam Chairman, that maybe we need to have the fire marshal weigh in. I think the policy committee should take another look.
I don't think that's important because incandescent lamps are in wide use still, regardless of the federal is not prohibiting the use of them. It's just that they said that certain wattage of these should be eliminated because they are energy inefficient.
Okay.
They use more electricity than any of the other types of bulbs. And we can simplify this whole thing by just saying that lamps that use halogen are prohibited.
Okay. Okay, so we need to move on.
Mrs. Raymond, excuse me.
Yes, Ms. Porter.
Mrs. Patrick, do we know why that was in there? Was it in there because of a fire safe? This is a fire safety policy. I assume we had input from the fire department on this. Is there a reason that you know of that the fire marshal put that in there?
I know that it was reviewed with the fire marshal, with Chris Lassard. So I was not part of the conversation. The two of them had the conversation. So I can't speak specifically to it. I can find out, but I don't currently know.
I can answer that question because it's very common, or it had been very common, that halogen lamps, because of the heat that they generate, easily set curtains on fire or other trappings around windows or chairs. That's why halogen lamps are prohibited. Incandescent lamp bulbs, they get hot too, but not as hot as the halogen lamps.
Okay, thank you. On the amendment, can we please have a roll call on the amendment to
On the
strike
amendment-
incandescent bulbs?
On the amendment to remove the word incandescent.
And
Ms.
bulbs. It has to be and bulbs, or else the sentence doesn't make sense.
Incandescent bulbs. Ms. Raymond?
Oh, no, I was wrong. Keep bulbs, sorry.
Or
Incandescent, or incandescent.
Right.
Okay, Ms. Raymond?
Yes.
Mr. Coffman?
No.
Mr. Mosher?
Yes.
Ms. Van Twyver?
No.
Mr. Guarino votes yes. Ms. Hohensee?
Yes.
Ms. Timmons?
He's out.
Nope. Ms. Porter?
No.
Okay, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 yeses and 3 noes. The yeses have it. So the policy is amended to remove or incandescent from page 2 of 2 under lamps.
Okay, now on to the original motion to approve this motion as it has been amended.
Okay, on the motion to approve policy EBCB as amended, Ms. Raymond?
Yes.
Mr. Coffman?
No.
Mr. Mosher?
Yes.
Ms. Van Twyver?
Yes.
Mr. Guarino votes yes. Ms. Hohensee?
Yes.
Ms. Timmons has stepped out. Ms. Porter?
No.
I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 yeses, 2 noes. Motion carries.
Okay.
Okay, our other policy, moving right along, is a change in policy JBAA-R, and that would be in the appendix to change Jennifer Sirpati's name to Thomas Adamakos as principal of Amherst Street Elementary School.
Second.
So I move, okay, did you
There-
second?
No, that was Doris,
There
but
are
there are
other
other changes.
Other changes,
So
there's
the
also.
amendment
right,
should just be as amended.
As amended.
As
right,
presented.
Right, as presented. So
Okay.
I move to approve policy JBAA-R, Appendix 1, as presented.
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Hohensee. Is there any discussion on this particular item? Seeing none, could you please call the roll?
Ms. Raymond?
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman?
Yes.
Mr. Mosher? Mr. Mosher, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I said yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't pick it up. Ms. Van Twyver?
Yes.
Mr. Guarino votes yes. Ms. Hohensee?
Yes.
Ms. Timmons?
Yes.
Ms. Porter?
Yes.
Motion carries 8-0. 2-0. Okay, our next one is district security procedures. I move to approve policy ECA-R, district security procedures as presented.
Second.
Okay.
Any discussion on this, policy?
There are no changes to it, right?
Yes, there is on
One,
page
where is
2.
it?
Page 2, it adds the words designated
Thank you.
volunteers.
I remember that now.
Yep, okay. Any other discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
On the motion to approve policy ECA-R, Ms. Raymond?
Yes.
Mr. Coffman has stepped out. Mr. Mosher? Ms. Van Twyver?
Yes.
Mr. Guino votes yes. Ms. Hohensee?
Yes.
Ms. Timmons?
Yes.
Ms. Porter?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, I'd like to propose that we take a 10-minute break. We're losing members, and I think we all need to stretch our legs before we talk about JIC. Any objections to a 5-minute break? 10-minute break. I always say 5, and we're never back till 10.
We're past our 2 hours then?
We'll be past our 2 hours, yes.
Okay.
Okay, then, we'll take a 10-minute break starting now. It is 9:59. 8:59. It's 8:59. I read it correctly the first time. I'm really tired. Thank you. It is 9:10. We are back in session. And the next item on our agenda was continuing with policy. We had some amendments to JIC. Mr. Guarino, did you have a motion?
Yes, Madam President. I move to approve policy JIC, student behavior standards as amended.
Okay, second.
Second.
Oh, Mr.
Motion.
Moser would like to second that.
Can I speak on the motion?
Please do.
This motion, the changes to JIC that we made in the policy committee were made to deal with vaping and the offenses of vaping, and also education for school vaping. Those were the changes that specifically we made for JIC. And I want to thank Dottie Oden for all her input. She was very helpful on the changes.
Okay, thank you. And so, as someone mentioned earlier, this aligns with the law that recently passed, making vaping illegal in schools, and changes vaping and cigarettes from a class 3 to a class 2, and creates another consequence, which would be that they could be required to engage in an educational activity. Is there any discussion on this motion? Ms. Hohensee?
Thank you. I'm glad they put that line in there, that they may be required to engage in an activity. That's not clear, but it's in there. Is it in there also for the class 1 policy offense?
No, because vaping is a class 2, so that's all that was addressed.
Oh, because that's state law. Why, if they're going to be out, would we require a class 2 to have an engagement in academics while they're out, and not have class 1, which is more severe and they're out for a longer time, involved in academic? Maybe we don't do it tonight, but it's something to think about.
Agreed. Ms. Porter?
I think that when it says will engage in an educational activity, I think it's education about vaping.
Oh, so it's not the academics that they're
No, it's
leaving behind?
they're teaching them about vaping. Am I correct?
Yes.
I think that
that's
was
what it
the
for.
intent, but because it's under class 2, it says maybe. I mean, I suppose it leaves.
But it would be about, I think the intent of it was to be educated about vaping.
But Ms. Hohensee's right, it does open the door to students may be asked to do educational activities for other class 2 offenses.
So, big deal.
Yeah.
Let them
And it's maybe, it's not will be or must be.
Right, because there's some categories that are vaping and some categories that are not under class 2.
Yep.
But just going forward, I think that's something we might want to think about. If we've got students out for 10 or 20 days, that maybe homework is sent home, some kind of, so they don't come back, and then it's a problem for the teacher to do the catch-up.
I think there is something in place for that.
Yep. But it, yeah.
Could you
and-
explain what's in place?
Particularly for middle school students, if they're suspended several days, up to 20, which is very unusual for middle school, they go to the youth council and go to the suspension center. For high school students, depending on the circumstances, they may get a tutor. We may gather work and send the work home to them. It varies from student to student and their willingness to continue to participate in their education.
Thank you.
And I think Ms. Oden's intent on this was also to provide a vehicle for kids to receive education about the offense that was committed, so that they could, work towards rehabilitation. So if someone was caught vaping, they would get education about the effects of vaping. I suppose that could go to other offenses too, if it was, bullying, for example, they may be required to undergo some education surrounding that. I think that would fall within this.
Okay, thank you.
'Cause
But
that's
we
a class 2 as well.
We should think whether we're going to put it on a class 1 at some point, not today necessarily.
Agreed. Okay. I'm sorry, any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. On the motion to approve these changes to JIC?
Ms. Raymond?
Yes.
Mr. Coffman?
Yes.
Mr. Mosher?
Yes.
Ms. Van Twyver?
Yes.
Mr. Greeno votes yes. Ms. Hohensee?
Yes.
Ms. Timmons?
Yes.
Ms. Porter?
Yes.
Motion carries 8-0.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other policy items for us this evening?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Committee on Curriculum and Evaluation. Ms. Porter?
So we had a presentation on the assessments that are occurring in our schools from K through 12 by Dr. McKinney and Ms. Fitzpatrick, and there were no motions taken at that meeting.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Porter. Moving on, Committee on Human Resources. Ms. Porter, I'm sorry, Ms. Timmons, you're back, yay.
Yay, thank you. I'd like to suspend the rules because we met earlier today. So can we take the vote on that?
Okay, I'll second that motion.
Didn't sound like a motion.
Sorry.
I move.
Yes, you are correct, Ms. Van Twyver.
Yay.
But as I said earlier, I don't think it's productive to argue about the rules.
I'd like to move to suspend the rules as the HR committee met earlier today at 6 o'clock on Wednesday,
Second.
October the 15th. Oh, today is 16th.
Okay, seconded. Discussion on suspending the rules so we can consider the items on the HR. None. Okay, can we please call the roll?
On the motion to suspend the rules, Ms. Raymond?
Yes.
Mr. Coffman?
Yes.
Mr. Mosher?
Yes.
Ms. Van Twyver?
Yes.
Mr. Greeno votes yes. Ms. Hohensee?
Yes.
Ms. Timmons?
Yes.
Ms. Porter?
Yes.
Motion carries 8-0.
Wonderful. Ms. Timmons?
We had a revised personnel recommendation dated today, so you should have gotten a copy of it.
Okay.
All except Mr. Mosier. So I'll move to approve personnel recommendations, the revised copy dated today, October 16th.
Second?
Okay, any discussion? I don't see any hands or hear anybody, so can we please have a roll on the motion to approve today's revised personnel recommendations?
Ms. Raymond?
Yes.
Mr. Coffman?
Yes.
Mr. Mosher?
Yes.
Ms. Van Twyver?
Yes.
Mr. Greeno votes yes. Ms. Hohensee?
Yes.
Ms. Timmons?
Yes.
Ms. Porter?
Yes.
Motion carries 8-0.
Okay, thank you. Any other HR items for us this evening, Ms. Timmons?
No, our next meeting will be November the 20th at 6 o'clock here at North.
Okay, thank you. Liaison reports. Ms. Porter, did you want to give an update on the Ed Council?
Yes, so we met on October 9th, Ms. Raymond and I, and we have ongoing robust conversations during these meetings. We talked about how many of the issues that were raised fit into the strategic plan, and we talked about ways to move forward. So I think it was a productive meeting.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Porter. Regarding the JSSBC on October the 9th, I know a number of us were there. Mr. Corino, did you want to give the update this evening, or would you like me to?
You can give the update. Although I was at the meeting, I just not prepared. I do remember a lot of things that we did, but I really didn't prepare a report.
That's fine. So the JSSBC, we heard from the architects at Harriman and Associates. They presented a PowerPoint and gave each of the JSSBC members a very large book, which had all of the reports and the results of all of the investigations. They presented several proposals for moving forward, including renovating our existing middle schools versus building a new middle school. The costs are significantly different between renovating and building new. Building new is surprisingly, to me at least, less expensive. The architects will be presenting their findings again to this board at a special meeting on Monday, the 21st, here in this room at 7 or 6:30. Hold on, I have it right here. At October 21st, at 6 to 8:30 p.m., the architects will be presenting their presentation again to this committee as a whole, this board as a whole, so that we can see what they have to say and ask questions. Further, on the 24th of October, from 7:15 to 7:45 p.m. here in this room, there will be a JSSBC meeting, and then in the cafeteria, there will be a public hearing at 7:45 where the public can go and ask questions of the architects regarding all of the options. Anyone have any questions about that? No? Okay. That's all I have on JSSBC. Oh, Ms. Hohensee.
I had a few concerns about those meetings. I've gone to the past couple, and I know that the chairman of the JSSBC, who was here earlier tonight, has left, but he has repeatedly said that that committee will decide on what the plans are going to be. And I looked up the statute, construction on schoolhouses, and it said no schoolhouse shall be erected, altered, remodeled, or changed in any city school district unless the plans have been previously submitted to the school board of that district and received its approval. So the approval by law, by state law, is with this board. So I think that he needs to be corrected on that, because I know he said that at least twice. There was another problem with education law 321, school building construction, .07, design standards. For the purpose of standards for school sites and construction projects for school buildings, design capacity shall be based on reasonable enrollment projections developed through a statistically valid process. Now, I didn't see that report. It could be a report, but that's state law again. It's education rules under the commissioner and the department. All I've heard is we want 800 in each school, and even with the numbers that they're coming up with, it looks like they've got overcapacity of 300. I don't see a statistically valid process that gets that number. And I pointed out, because there's not been a lot of feedback to the board, when I was there, that we have right across the hall, we have a breakout thing when 10 or 15 years ago when the school was built. And it was a discipline problem. Kids hung out, you couldn't see them looking down the halls, and we've closed them in. And they're proposing those breakouts in the hallways. Again, evidence and feedback from the board might have alleviated that in that first project. So I'm just very concerned about the process as from what I've heard. And I did get my book, and it is online, so the public can actually look at that report.
Right.
So I'm encouraged by that.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Hohensee. Like you, the rest of the JSSBC first got all of that information on Wednesday. So we're at the very beginning part of getting information, and I think your questions are valid and ought to be asked to the architects on Monday. That's the purpose of that meeting, so that they can, present to the board, and then the board can give feedback. None of these plans are like final. This is the very, very, very first rough draft. So, Mr. Guarino?
Thank you, Madam President. I think that Ms. Hohensee brings up a very important question about enrollment and estimates for enrollment. That law actually doesn't say who's responsible to make that, if I read that correctly. So we have to find out who's responsible for it. Point number one. Point number two, population projections are made in the state planning department in the state of New Hampshire. I've been looking myself for population projections because we're going to base our enrollment on population, and I really can't. I mean, you're talking about estimating something and talking about the future, which is it's very precarious to try to say what's going to happen in the future. But there are models out there, and I've been looking for population projections for New Hampshire, and also to try to find out what the enrollment will be. But it's very dynamic, and there's a lot of input that goes into it, and what comes out of it. You may have these projections in enrollment, but not always going to be 100% guaranteed that it's going to be correct. But I do think you bring up a valid point that, and I don't see anywhere in New Hampshire, not just Nashua, I don't see any place that's doing any modeling or projecting of population, which then we can use to try to figure out enrollment. But other people in the district or other people in planning, and maybe the planning department in Nashua or the regional planning agency can help us with that. And actually, it's state planning and at the state level.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Guarino. I would like to suggest that we have our discussion on this at the meeting for that purpose. This was simply an update, like, hey, we met and here's what happened. But I think any discussion about plans or questions about the plans that we can't answer in this group ought to be reserved till Monday. So, Mr. Coffman, do you have a comment that needs to go to the architects?
No, I have a comment that requires board action.
Okay.
As it relates to the activities of the JSSB itself.
Okay.
And I'd like to make a motion and then explain it.
Certainly.
Move to suspend Board of Ed participation in the Joint School Board Committee, JSSBC, contingent upon the city attorney resolving the legal issues encountered by the JSSB committee, conducting 9 meetings without a roll call vote with Mr. Mosier present, 34 votes, voice votes, without requiring a roll call because Mr. Mosier was present, and an unknown impact on bid evaluation and contract acceptance without a roll call and vote. And if I can get a second, I'd like to explain my concern.
Second.
May I?
Sure. Concisely, please.
Yeah, the fact is the committee is operating outside the board policies that require a roll call vote whenever a member is absent in the room but participating on the phone. It's a board policy that requires all votes be roll call. We do it as a matter of fact here. People wonder why always a roll call. It's because Mr. Mosier's on the phone. The JSSB does not do that for some reason. They've done it intermittently I went back, and what caught my attention was when I attended the JSSB the last time, and there was a voice vote. Mr. Mosier was on the phone, and I, encouraged the chair, and he did do a roll call vote correctly. I went back to the meetings all the way back to May of last year. I have a sheet I'll be happy to provide to the board, which summarizes on what dates, the attendance, and how much. And the issue here, too, is that, and I didn't even mention it, there's about $235,000 worth of contract approvals that were done, they were spending without roll call votes. Okay. So I believe the board should, get Mr. Bolton involved and resolve this before we continue to move that committee forward, because the committee is operating outside the intent of our policies. And I'll give everybody a copy of this.
And state law, the right to know law, it's RSA 91A2.
I'm sorry, state law, RSA 91A2 requires a roll call vote?
Any member participating in a meeting by the means of described in this paragraph, that's electronic by phone, is deemed to be present at the meeting for purpose of voting. All votes taken during such meeting shall be by roll call vote. So our policy merely mimics state law, so it is a requirement. And as Mr. Coffman said, if there's money involved, somebody could contest that in court. A citizen can contest that in court, that it wasn't a valid meeting, vote, if you're not following state law. Contracts, it could be, we had one that came back to the board because we didn't vote properly and they made us redo it because they didn't want to be stuck in the middle. So it's something that we need to look at.
Okay. And this has not been sent to Mr. Bolton yet?
No.
Okay. Mr. Coffman? Mr. Guarino?
Thank you, Madam President. I'm not going to support this at all, and I think it's kind of an insult to the chair of the Joint Special Committee. He does a really great job, and I think it's also an insult to the members of this board who represent the Board of Education on the JSSB. These are petty and trivial, and we should not even discuss it. If Mr. Mosher had a problem with any motions or anything that's been said, he would speak up. And he can, I don't want to speak for Mr. Mosher, he speaks for himself, but I think it's petty, and I think it's trivial, and it's a waste of time, and it's an insult to me, myself, and all the other members from the BOE who are on the Joint Special, and it's ridiculous. I think there's one word to describe it: ridiculous.
Thank you, Mr. Guarino. Ms. Van Twyver?
I would expect you to believe that because you don't like to follow policy or procedures, so.
Okay.
And
Excuse me, I asked not to denigrate each other.
But he's just bringing out of the fact that these are not following Robert's rules of, or.
State law.
Excuse me, state law, or what is the other?
Board policy.
Well, no, the other,
But
the
we can discuss the merits of the motion without denigrating each other. Yes?
I find it hard.
That is
I
fine.
find it very hard.
But we need to set an example.
But it's typical, these students here, if they were there and watched it, they'd get the wrong impression about how business is supposed to be transaction. Okay. Now, we're an education organization, and we should be doing things correctly.
Okay, thank you.
So should the JSSB.
Thank you, and I appreciate Ms. Hohensee bringing us the law. That's always helpful. Ms. Porter?
I think that we can look into this without suspending the whole committee, the work of the committee. So this is fine, and I think that talking to Attorney Bolton is a good idea, but I don't think that it's necessary to bring everything to a grinding halt at this point. I think that even before the meeting on Monday, we can talk to Alderman Dowd, and I'm sure that we can fix this.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Porter. Any other discussion? Ms. Hohensee?
Thank you. I agree in the sense that Monday's meeting will be a hearing or presentation to the board, no action by the JSBC, whatever that committee is going to happen. The hearing is, again, for the public. It's a presentation, and they're getting feedback from the public. I wouldn't expect those to be suspended at all. but that will give time to the following meeting where they are actually taking more action on spending money, contracts, or doing something. That's where you wouldn't have the committee take action. And action is a motion. So it would suspend motions by the JSSBC until the city attorney looked at it, which I think he would do rather quickly. And I don't think following the law is petty or ridiculous. I disagree.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts. Last comment, Mr. Coffman.
Thank you. There's a systemic problem with not following the rules. They were not followed in November, three meetings in November of 2018, in January of this year, March,
Mr. Coffman.
May. I just want to make a point.
Yeah, but
May,
you've already
June.
pointed out, we don't need a list.
It's endemic to the way that committee is operating with an overt disregard of the law. And the fact is, there's a majority of board members on that committee, each of whom is, almost all of us are here today, and I'm not on the committee, who know Robert's rules, who invoke roll call and see it invoked every time that we have a vote here. For whatever reason, they've chosen not to do it at the joint committee. It still applies. And I don't think it's difficult to recover from this. I think the committee would have to make a series of new motions and just do that over, and that's remedial for me. But I think the law should be followed, and I think that committee should not be doing anything else. And the board members here are now aware of the issue of failure to conduct roll calls as required, should, say, you know what, we messed up, let's have the attorney do it, and we'll get this thing straight, and we'll move forward. Thank you.
Thank you for bringing it to our attention, Mr. Coffman. All right, on the motion, and I'm not going to read all of your dates and times, but the essence was to move to suspend the Board of Ed member participation in the JSSBC because of the lack of roll call on votes, and then it went on, and I assume you will give that to Mr. Guarino and also Ms. Waters.
I think it'd be a good idea to give that to Rick Dowd as well.
Yes. So, but if you could type it up and email it, we'll make sure we get the correct language in the minutes, and also to Mr. Dowd.
Okay, so Mr. Guarino's not going to write that, sorry, so Mr. Guarino's not going to write it now? You just
Not
want
at
me
this
to
point.
send
I'm
it?
going to take a vote first.
Okay.
Would you like me to read the motion?
No, we've already read it.
No.
That's not your stuff.
No, but I think I would like, as a matter of convenience, for you to email it.
You want to take a picture of it and give it to him?
No, that's all right.
So that we can make sure that it is properly recorded.
But I would also argue that the motion should be properly stated before we vote on it, in case anybody's not clear. You paraphrased, and I think your intent was well intended, but it's not what I completely said, so.
I understand.
May I read the motion for clarification?
Sure, go ahead.
Move to suspend Board of Education member participation in the Joint School Board Committee, JSSBC, contingent upon the city attorney resolving the legal issues encountered by the JSSB committee, conducting 9 meetings without a roll call vote with Mr. Mosier present, 34 voice votes without a required roll call vote, unknown impact on bid evaluation and contract acceptance without a roll call vote.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Guarino, the roll, please.
On the motion, Ms. Raymond?
No.
Mr. Coffman?
Yes.
Mr. Mosher?
No.
Ms. Van Twyver?
Yes.
Mr. Guarino votes no. Ms. Hohensee?
Yes.
Ms. Timmons?
No.
Ms. Porter?
No.
I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 noes and 3 yeses. Motion fails.
Okay, moving on. The next item on our agenda is unfinished business. Mr. Coffman had requested to the policy committee that they move their meeting on November 5th to an alternate date at a policy committee meeting. They declined, so now he has asked for that to be presented to the board. So,
May I
go forward.
So for some of us, it's election night. We can't be in two places at the same time. The schools are closed, so we're really not going to get much staff or parental involvement on a night like that. And I would ask the chair of the committee to, actually, I guess I'd move before the board to move the policy committee to another night in November.
Second.
Okay.
May I just say something
Yes.
brief? It's just historically not been done in the past. There's respect by the board for the election, and they shut down meetings. They do that with the aldermen, they do that with this board.
Coming before policy.
It's his meeting.
Okay. Mr. Guarino?
You want me to read the roll?
I think so. Do we have any other discussion?
Okay.
Nobody had their hands raised?
Motion
Anything?
to move the policy committee meeting November 5th to another date.
So,
Ms.
I'm sorry. I
Sorry.
said go ahead, but I do have a question. So this vote, a yes would compel the policy committee meeting to reschedule?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. On the motion, Ms. Raymond,
No.
Mr. Coffman,
Yes.
Mr. Mosher,
No.
Ms. Van Twyver,
Yes.
Mr. Guarino votes no. Ms. Hohensee,
Yes.
Ms. Timmons,
No.
Ms. Porter.
No.
I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 noes and 3 yeses. Motion fails.
Glad to see you guys are all voting patriotic people. Aren't you going to be helping out at the polls?
Absolutely.
Then why are you going to be here? So
Because
you're going to make me come to this meeting so that
You're on the board.
Yeah.
I'm on the committee, so I have to come here and I can't help out at the polls. Thank you for limiting my political activity.
I'll be doing mine.
Okay, so we're going to end this discussion now. New business. Ms. Hohensee has asked that we invoke our emergency powers to revise policy JIC. So we need to have a vote on whether or not we're going to invoke the emergency powers to consider this policy change, and then if so, we would vote on her language changes. So the first vote would be a motion to invoke the emergency powers.
So you want me to make a motion that we consider this under the emergency authority of the board?
I think that's
And
well
I-
well said.
And I need a second.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Can I speak to it? Just briefly?
To the emergency, not to the,
Okay.
yeah.
Bullying is epidemic. Suicide among young kids is also epidemic. I think out of respect for the problem, the nature of this problem, and what we've seen recently, I'm hoping the board will take this seriously.
Thank you. Mr. Guarino?
I definitely take this seriously. I take bullying very seriously. So I just wanted that in the public record. And there are some people that have said here tonight that nothing's being done, and something is being done. It may not, it may not go far enough, and people know how to get around the rules. The rules, people have been punished, and the kids that are bullying, they know how to get around the rules, So it's not like nothing is being done. Things are being done, okay? It doesn't go far enough all the time. I was a parent. I am a parent. And my kids were in school, and there were times that I thought not enough was being done, and I understand that. And I think we can make positive changes, but I don't think this is an emergency. And I just be careful of people who use emergencies for their own personal agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Guarino. Mr. Coffman?
I think the parent voice tonight expressed urgency and acknowledged that there's things that need to be done immediately, and then there are things that can be done on a longer time window. This is trying to address the immediate. There should not be any of our students who feel unsafe coming to school. And that parent made that point very clear. And I think if you I think there's probably more discussion to happen with this, and perhaps maybe a special meeting of the board, so you don't consume all your time tonight discussing it, but that the parents would have another night to come in and be more perhaps involved in the conversation, that they know that this is on the table and it's out there, and we're going to deal with it in a deliberate and short time frame. So that's kind of my thinking on it.
Okay, thank you. Would anyone else, Mr.?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mosier, and then Dr. Mosley.
Yes, I saw it tonight as a need being put up by the parents to get some action started. However, I saw it as a very emotional thing, and what we would have to do if we're going to study this or do something about it, we have to do it without the emotions, without any histrionics. And that way there we can work at it with a clear head, clear mind, and finally resolve something or find a plan that we think will work. But to just go with a knee-jerk session and a lot of emotions by parents, we feel sorry for them. I'm a parent myself. I have 5 children, and went to different schools in different places, and we all face the same emergencies, so to speak. But I can't operate under an emergency or something that presses us, because then we make mistakes. We have to do it with a cool mind, cool head, and to do it without the histrionics, without the emotions. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Mosley.
Just to recap what was shared in my correspondence and was shared this night. There is active investigation going on right now, and to make a proposal to have an emergency modification to a policy without any type of information or any type of substance data would be premature. The second thing, I just want to be very, very clear to the public and to this board. Throwing the word out, suicide, is so reckless and inappropriate. There has been no reported suicide whatsoever in this district. And we have to be very, very careful in using those words and putting it out there, because our kids and our families hear these words and it scares them. It scares the parents into this feeling that some type of suicide has happened, and that has not been the case. So I caution board members using words that are not appropriate, that have no substance in this situation, but also being very, very sensitive to people who have been affected by such acts as suicide. It is reckless and not appropriate.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Mosley. Ms. Van Twyver?
Yes, JIC says, instigating, engaging in, or attempting to fight another student, the investigating professional may take into consideration the actions of the student who was attacked if he or she had no reasonable alternative but to physically defend him or herself. It's a class 2. So I think this ought to go back to policy, and if you want to make this a class 1 event or whatever, that might be the solution. But right now, there is a ruling, there is a policy that principals should be invoking, and I'm telling you, half the time, we've got them, but they don't invoke them, so, but I think it should go back to policy.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Van Twyver. Ms. Hohensee, I'm going to...
She spoke twice. I spoke once.
I don't think she spoke before on this.
You didn't on this one? Okay, I'm sorry, I apologize. I thought she did.
So, I'm sorry, Ms. Timmons, did you have something?
No, it's not going to change anybody's mind on the vote, so to keep speaking on it is just useless.
Okay, I do want to say something, though. To me, I think we ought to use our emergency powers very carefully. I understand that there has been quite a bit on social media. I think we need to be very careful with social media. Things get shared and expanded upon very quickly. At this point, we have a policy. We have no evidence that that policy hasn't been followed. One of the issues with a situation like bullying or physical altercations at school is that student privacy laws prevent the district and us from sharing what the bully's consequence was. So the perpetrator, the perpetrator is a child and has certain rights, and one of those rights is that the punishment not be disclosed to the victim. It's odd when you think about like Law and Order kind of stuff and stuff on TV, but that's the law that we have to operate under. So I think a lot of assumptions can be made when there's a lack of information. And so to me, until I have evidence that JIC isn't being followed, I don't see an emergency. And that it's being, widespread unfollowed, because right now, all the, I don't have evidence that that's happening. So this vote is about invoking our emergency powers, and I think that we should really be thinking about, is this an emergency or not? So Ms. Hohensee.
Thank you. A couple months ago, we had a meeting where we had parents and students come, and we had an emergency change to the JROTC marksmanship program. We didn't go through the process. We had a non-public, and then we had a vote, and everything changed. And you admitted at one point that it didn't escalate through the normal channels because there was a presence from the community, and we made an emergency change to a previous decision. Those students were worried about feeling safe. It was a potential danger. These students have a far realer danger that they are not safe. When we take an administrator and we put them on leave, we don't say for 1 week and then you'll be back. It's until it's solved. This student or other students can be put on suspension for 1 week and then come back into the school community. Parents are understandably upset. This doesn't change the policy. This just says when there's clear evidence that we take a real step to remove a danger until we can be sure that there's safety for our students before we restore that suspension.
Ms. Hohensee, no one is arguing about the merits of your proposal. No one's saying that they
You're not allowing it to
disagree.
go forward for a vote. You're trying to deny it based on whether or not it's an
No one is
emergency.
discussing or arguing about the merits of your proposal. In fact, Ms. Van Twyver specifically said that
It should
we
go to
ought to
committee.
discuss it at committee.
May I continue?
No.
Wait, I was talking. I had the floor, and
You were
interrupted me?
talking, but we are talking about the emergency powers. You
And
have
I'm still
gone
t-
far, you've gone,
Hey, the superintendent said that I shouldn't use a word. I wasn't the first to bring that up. A parent brought that up.
Parent is not an elected board member.
I understand. But I'm saying I didn't introduce the concept. That fear is out there. I'm not trying to make it worse. I'm trying to make it better.
Madam President.
I've heard from teachers that they're concerned that we don't suspend enough students. We have a policy. There's-
Again, is this is what you're speaking to about this motion regarding, is this an emergency, or is it about the merits of your proposal? Because what I'm hearing is merits, not emergency. Ms. Van Twyver.
Well, I was just going to say that if we did work on this tonight, that's not going to make the students feel any safer just because we've got something on paper. I think that the superintendent needs to go out and do something to make these students feel better. I don't think it's an emergency. We have something that covers it.
Okay.
So I will be voting against the emergency.
Mr. Guarino.
Thank you, Madam President. I agree with Ms. Van Twyver. I think it should go back to policy. The JROTC decision was not, we didn't invoke emergency powers to do that. That was, we had already taken a motion, and it had nothing to do with policy. And this does change if we invoke the powers, we are going to change a policy tonight. So you can't say that this doesn't change a policy. It will if we invoke these powers. So I think it should go, I agree with Ms. Van Twyver and Mr. Mosher, we should go back and think about it you know, and put something that hopefully we can make a difference and think about it in policy, something that we can all agree on, rather than, like, as Mr. Moshe said, a knee-jerk reaction. Thank you.
Okay, can you please call the roll? And this is to, our vote is regarding using our emergency powers to discuss and change a policy without going to the policy committee. So a yes would be skip the policy committee, work on it tonight. A no would mean no, we're not going to invoke our emergency powers to change a policy without going through the committee.
Ms. Raymond?
No.
Mr. Coffman?
No.
Mr. Mosher?
No.
Ms. Van Twyver?
No.
Mr. Guarino votes no. Ms. Hohensee?
Yes.
Ms. Timmons?
No.
Ms. Porter?
No.
I have 1 yes and 7 noes. Motion fails.
Okay. So we are not going to invoke our emergency powers, but it sounds like we are pretty much in agreement that this go to policy. I don't think that requires a vote, but I'm happy to do that.
Point of order, it'll go to policy on election night when some of the members won't be here. That's very good, thank you.
That meeting probably.
Thank you.
No, it'll go into the policy queue, hopefully, you know, at the next one, but I don't know if they've already set that agenda. I think that's for the policy chair and administration to discuss. If you would like them to wait, I think that's a reasonable request as well. So, okay.
So if, I'd like to make a motion that this issue be moved to policy for discussion, perhaps at the December meeting.
All right, I'll second that. Do we need discussion? I think we're all pretty much in agreement. So,
yes.
Motion to move it to policy.
For the December meeting.
December 3rd.
Thank you.
Fine.
Dr. Mosley.
Yes, Dr. Mosley.
Isn't that up to the policy chair to make that determination? They have things.
Not if the board votes it.
They're
Yes, typically it would be up to the chair to manage his queue, but in this case, Mr. Coffman has made a motion that we compel the policy committee to consider it at their December meeting.
Thank you.
On the motion.
On the motion to move this issue of changes to policy JIC to policy for December 3rd meeting. Ms. Raymond?
Yes.
Mr. Coffman?
Yes.
Mr. Mosher?
Yes.
Ms. Van Twyver?
Yes.
Mr. Guarino votes yes. Ms. Hohensee?
Yes.
Ms. Timmons?
Yes.
Ms. Porter?
Yes.
Motion carries 8-0.
Great. Mr. Guarino, one more thing on this item. I would very much appreciate it if you could send Ms. Hohensee's language changes to one of the attorneys for review between now and then, just because we want to make sure that it makes sense and it says exactly what Ms. Hohensee is intending for it to say.
Good to be proactive.
Yeah, I'd like to know that before the meeting so we're prepared. So, okay. The next 3 items on our agenda are for non-public. So I'd like to propose that we have our last public comment period, 3 tonight, and board member comments, and then we go into non-public.
Yes.
Any objections? Okay, no objections. So, public comments. Did anyone else have a public comment about anything they would like? Yes? Please come up. State your name. If you're a student, just say student. If you're not a student, please state your residency.
Julia Kucher, Nashua. Actually attend the Nashua Community College.
Okay.
I did graduate class of 2018.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'd like to ask, who said that there wasn't a suicide due to bullying? Because there was, right here in this school. My junior year, there was due to bullying, one of my friends. So I'd like to say, why would you say that there wasn't? Right here in this city, yes, there was in the school district.
Oh, I'm sorry, we've lost Mr. Mosier. Could you press on hook, please? I apologize for that interruption.
It's okay.
So thank you for sharing that with us. I think that is
Does she want to continue?
information. Did you have anything else you wanted to share?
I just want to know if there's anything that's going to be done, because if this is an if someone killing themselves is an emergency, I don't know what is. I really don't know. Someone lost their life, someone who I've been to school with ever since I was probably down to first grade. She's been bullied elementary school and middle school, all like through high school, and in junior year, she decided, I'm done. And that's what happened. I just want to know what's going to be done. Is there going to be other girls like her? Are there going to be more? Maybe, like, how many? How many does it take? How many students' lives are going to be taken for you guys to take action? I don't understand. And I feel embarrassed.
Please don't feel embarrassed. I appreciate you coming here and sharing what is clearly very painful and very important for us to know. So thank you for that. Okay. Did we have any other public comments? You, sir. If you could state your name and residence.
My name's Scott Kuchar. I'm from Nashua. It's my first time coming to the board. I'm kind of naive to the whole process. And I'm ashamed to say that, because when I sit here and I look at you guys, we voted for you people to sit here. And I sit here and I see like this line. I see this side and I see this side, and it's going like this. And there's this clash, right? And I feel like, and I hear three people over here, and I don't know any of you, so please don't take this personal. It's just my observation of tonight. I see three people who want to include the parents. They want to follow procedures and process and the law. In my job, I'm an engineer. We follow procedures all the time. You have to do it, right? And he brings up a point that, hey, we're supposed to do it this way. And then somebody over here has a hissy fit about it. And I'm sitting here thinking, like, what is this? Do you guys follow the procedures or don't you? He brings up that there's laws about taking roll call. And he hands the papers out, and people just get the paper and just, like, they couldn't be bothered to follow the law or follow procedure. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, who do you people work for? Do you work for me, the guy that voted you in? Or is it somebody else? I don't know. But last I checked, you guys work for the people. So it was very eye-opening for me. And I'm going to encourage everybody that I know to come and take a look at this, because it is so eye-opening to just sit here and just watch, right? And I might not understand 100% of everything that you guys are talking about, but I understand enough, and people need to come and they need to see this. And like my daughter had mentioned, Mr. Garino, I'm sorry if I'm messing up your name, and you said this isn't an emergency, and I would disagree based on what my daughter had said. And then the other thing you said that kind of tweaked me a little bit was when one of the parents had come up, you said, well, you need to be persistent. And I was thinking, really? Really? We need to be persistent?
You do.
Mr. Guarino.
Why do we need to be persistent? Why, if your kid's getting bullied, why would you need to be persistent? Doesn't that just sound wrong to people?
Mr. Guarino, please do not interrupt him again.
He's not supposed to respond.
I would like to get the chance.
Mr. Guarino,
At some point in time.
no, this is not your opportunity to respond. This is his time.
I understand that.
Mr. Guarino.
I understand it. It's fine.
And I apologize if I sound like I'm attacking. This is just, like I said, I've never been to this before, and these are my observations. Just thank you for your time.
Thank you for your feedback, sir. Okay. No, we do not respond to public comments. The public has the opportunity to share with us what they would like us to know. It is not an opportunity for us to debate or argue with members of the public. Okay. Anybody else from the public? Mr. Marcoux, you're done with us for this evening, huh?
I'm done with you for a long time.
All right. So,
Don't egg them on.
moving on to board member comments. As I like to do, I'm going to just go around the circle. Ms. Van Twyver, do you have board member comments this evening?
Well, I'd like to thank the gentleman for expressing his opinion about this board and how we operate. I've been saying it for so long, and I'm glad to see that he observed this himself and came to the same conclusion, and I thank him for that.
Thank you. Mr. Coffman, are you prepared to do a board member comment?
Yeah, thank you. I had written comments which I will not be giving tonight. I'll be handing them to the candidates at the League of Women Voters. But I do want to acknowledge our student representatives for getting nominated for their potential scholarship, and that's obvious, for hard work gets you there. To the other students tonight who received awards, congratulations, you're setting an example for all of us. That hard work, dedication really does pay off, and it's good to learn math. You will need it later on in life. And the last thing that I want to do is speak to the parents that came tonight in particular. Thank you for listening. Thank you for observing what we do here or what we don't do here. Please come. Double yourself, triple yourself, quadruple yourself. Because unless and until this room is filled with parents who express concern that there's an immediate need, nothing will be done promptly. It takes on average 3 to 6 months to get a policy in the hopper for discussion. That's one of the reasons why I specified the date. I want to see if we can do something before our term is over by the end of the year. So parents, if you're still watching and still here, thanks again, but you've got to quadruple yourselves. The best success story I've seen at this board was when the Mount Pleasant Parent-Teacher Organization came here once, needing ventilation. And it was a night when the administration said, we're not going to do it. And the board had not been notified of what the previous administration wanted to do. And the parents were here to address a problem. The next month, the Finance Committee was held at the Mount Pleasant School with the architects in attendance. At the next meeting, I will bring what I consider to be a cherished object, is the golden pitchfork that PTO gave me, acknowledging because I encouraged them to do and come and speak. So I'm giving everybody heads up. I am bringing a pitchfork next month because you guys have to show up with pitchforks if you want something to happen. Thank you. And you guys, I mean parents. And thank you. I'm sorry for the loss of your friend, and acknowledge your courage and friendship even now. And I'm sorry you really had to experience that here. And that's sincere. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Coffman. Ms. Hohensee?
Thank you. I'm very upset by what happened tonight. Once again, I put something on the agenda and we played with the technicality. Let's talk about whether or not it's an emergency. So we never actually talked about the proposal. I had a very simple proposal: indisputable physical violence and assault by a student directed against another student or staff member with corroborating evidence such as, but not limited to, a video recording. It would mandate that the perpetrator that was in that evidence, that irrefutable evidence, would be removed from the school community until the situation is resolved. We have administrators, they're removed. They're not removed for 1 week suspension and put back. I don't know what parents are, how they're surviving worrying about their kids. If we can have high school kids come in here and worry about air rifles and get them pushed out of practicing on campus over a potential danger. And we had a very real assault on one of our campuses, and we're just not going to do anything right now. We're going to push it off to committee because it's too difficult to say that when we see somebody pounding another student, that action should be taken. A 1-week suspension would not satisfy me if I was a parent of any child in that school. I don't like being censored by the superintendent for bringing up a topic. I don't like to be censored by the board president for not allowing me to discuss my proposal, discuss whether or not it's an emergency. But don't get too close to the issue, because that's talking about the issue and not the meta topic of whether or not it's an emergency. This board is an emergency. The people are not represented. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hohensee. Mr. Guarino?
Thank you, Madam President. You know, I said it before, I'm going to say it again. You have to be persistent. And you asked a question was asked, why should I be persistent? Because if your kid's getting bullied, you don't give up. You keep going. And you make a as big a stink as you can, okay? And that's what I did when my kids were in middle school. I was persistent, because I didn't like what I saw that was happening until I got satisfaction from the principal who emailed me, who talked to me personally. And it took me a long time. You have to be persistent, okay? So I'm all ears. I've heard a lot of people here come here and talk about bullying, but I haven't, something has to be done. I'm all ears. Just tell us what we have to do, okay? But more bureaucracy. Writing things on our policy is not going to change things one bit. Not going to change things one bit, okay? All right? But you have to be careful about people that exploit incidents like this. There are some people on this board who want to get reelected, and they want to exploit what's happening.
I take offense.
Well, you are doing it.
Mr. Guarino.
Okay? That's why you're taking offense.
Mr.
Guarino, I take
you
offense.
have to stop disparaging other members.
I am not disparaging. I'm telling the people what's going on. The people of the city of Nashua deserve better. They deserve representation on this board. We give them representation, and I think it's an insult to the chair of the joint special too, that he's not following every rule. You haven't been here for 2 years. I've been here for 2 years. Nothing would get done with some of the people on this board. Every little thing is a problem. Every little thing. They look for things just to stop
Point of order,
progress.
Disparaging again.
Just to stop progress.
Mr.
Okay?
Guarino?
I'm gonna stop right there because
I think that's a good decision.
it is a good idea to stop. But excuse me, I'm speaking, okay?
Disparaging.
But I just want to say this, that I think I was at the funeral. I was at the wake of that young girl who committed suicide. So I think I know who you're talking about. It affected me, because that little girl was on my soccer team, if that's the same girl. And that happened not when Dr. Mosley was here.
But let's not identify a victim.
I'm just telling you what I know about the city and what I saw. And I was at the wake. I know the family, and that was before Dr. Mosley, so he couldn't have not really have known about it. It was a few years back. It affected me. That girl was on my soccer team.
Mr. Guarino.
That's the truth, okay? And played soccer with my son. So it affects me too. Bullying there's zero tolerance in this city, in this district, for bullying. And to say that nothing is done, something is getting done. But it's not that easy. Okay, it's not that easy. Everybody has to do their part. That includes the administrators and the parents. Everybody has to do their part. You just can't go and say the schools have to fix this. Everybody we have to come together as a community and fix this. And so I am listening, and I do hear you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Guarino. Mr. Mosier? Oh, we lost Mr. Mosier, I forgot. Ms. Porter? No. Ms. Timmons?
Yes, I have some things to say. First, it's unfair to say 3 people on the board is doing all this work when they haven't been here for 2 years. And the 2 years that I've been here, I have seen people on the floor screaming and yelling. I've seen people screaming at the superintendent and other administrators. I have seen people call me stupid, clueless, or whatever you want to call. That's disrespectful. You cannot come here and say 1 minute you see a division. The division was 2 years ago when we got elected on the board, and we were called clueless because we were new. I also seen a lot of disrespect from board members, and you know those 2 that's over there. They have been really nasty. So Mr.
I object.
You can object all you want because you could be on the floor again.
I object.
Ms. Timmons.
All
I'm
right.
channeling
Well,
Mr.
let me just-
Guarino.
let me
I
finish.
object.
Let me finish.
Excuse me.
You always.
No, Mr. Guarino,
I don't
stop
like him using my
interjecting.
name.
It's my job.
I have,
Go ahead, ma'am.
no.
Go ahead,
No,
I
I'm
had
not
no-
going to get the 2 out of the room, okay?
Move
I
to
had-
Clearly,
adjourn.
we have
Move
some.
to adjourn.
Second.
It's out of order.
I'm still
We're
in the
out of
middle of
order.
my
Wait,
talk.
wait, 1 moment, please. We need to be respectful of one another. This is ridiculous.
We have
We
not
need to-
voted to extend past 9 o'clock. We're now at 10:15.
You are, yep,
Attorney Clausen's not here for the 3 non-publics.
We heard
you're
them
correct,
out.
Ms. Hohensee. I apologize. I forgot when we came back from our break to extend. Nonetheless, at this point, we have a motion to adjourn. I
I did. I
understand
seconded it.
that you were interrupted.
As usual.
I was
We-
disparaged, and that had to stop.
I understand. Once again, we're going to adjourn without me getting to say anything.
Madam President, according to
But-
Robert's rules, point of order, you cannot interrupt the speaker to move to adjourn.
I was interrupted this
You
evening.
interrupted the speaker, you just can't throw a motion out there while Ms. Timmons is speaking.
Was she in order, or was she disparaging?
No, excuse me. Excuse me. Stop arguing. This is ridiculous. Do you understand that this is ridiculous? Goodness gracious.
Can I finish?
Are you going to cast aspersions on other members?
I will not, but I will tell you that what they see today is not really the truth. That's
Okay,
all.
that
And
is-
also, I want to say, I do agree with the parents on the bullying. I have 10 grandkids in the school. Fortunately, they're not being bullied. However, they are in the school system. I don't hear that bullying as often from them. So I do agree with the parents that we should do something, but we are doing something. It takes time for us to get everything together. We have police investigation going on. We have all kinds of investigation going on. We have to let the process work it out before we can even do anything. And to put it on Facebook, which I've seen on New Hampshire Families, because I can't respond because I'm barred from it, it's a lot of not truthful stuff on that page, and it's not right. It should
Disparaging?
No, that's not disparaging. She's
No.
talking about a Facebook page.
I'm talking about a face. I didn't mention anybody's names. I just see a lot of stuff that's not true. There's a lot of untruth out there. I can't get on it to dispute it because I'm banned from
Okay,
it. So the point I'm trying to make, no, don't rush me, Heather, because you did not rush them.
Yes, you're correct. I
Okay?
stopped
So
myself.
I'm just saying to you is that it's not fair for some people to sit here and talk about what the board members have not done. What we did do is pass a lot of policies. What we did do is move the district forward. What we did do is pass the budget. We did a lot of good things. We need to move on. And when we get a new board, hopefully we'll be able to move on and we won't have this problem.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Timmons. I know everyone's tempers are high. I would respectfully request that I get a chance to say board comments before we move on the motion to adjourn. Does anyone have any objection? No. Okay, thank you. I appreciate y'all letting me have a chance. Oh, my Southern came out. Oh, Ms. Porter. No, Ms. Porter declined. I didn't skip her. I try not to skip people.
Mr. Mosier, did he come back?
He did not. Oh my goodness, this was quite the meeting. As many of you know, I have a middle school student that my son is in middle school. I also have a 9-year-old who will be in middle school in 2 years. And it seems like a lot of our concerns from parents are about the middle school environment. I don't disagree that it is challenging. My son is having a challenging time adjusting. Having said that, I do think that it's important that we adults not participate in making this stuff go viral. I was very upset to see a video with children in it fighting. I'm going to use that word even though it was, to me, it looked like an assault, but I'm not an expert in these things. It was very, very disturbing to see it, knowing that both participants were children. And children deserve a chance to be rehabilitated. They just do. They also deserve a chance to have their privacy while they learn from their mistakes. I hate the thought of a victim of a bullying incident seeing her victimization all over social media and on the news and everywhere else where she doesn't get a chance to not be the victim, that everybody knows what she looks like. It breaks my heart as a parent and as a human being. I do think that it's clear that we, the board and the district as a whole, need to look at our policies regarding bullying. We need to look at how we react to those things. But we need to have a robust discussion about it that is evidence-based. And I think that the way to do that is through committee. I don't think that we at the board are experts on any of this stuff. We have to get information from the experts before we move forward. The other thing I just want to keep in everybody's mind is everybody that we're talking about in the school, they're all children, and they deserve to be given the grace of being allowed to change. If they do something wrong, they need to learn, and they need to be given the opportunity to learn. And so I think that is the only way to do that is a collaboration between the district and families. And we can't do that if we're shouting at each other. So that's really all I have to say. And then if we don't want to do the non-publics, that's fine. It's up to the board.
We thought Attorney Clausen would be here, and he's not.
I don't think Attorney Clausen was necessary for this one because we scheduled a meeting specifically on the 28th with Attorney Clausen to address item number 1, a whole meeting just for that.
Number 1 or number 2?
Number 1. Number 2 is nothing. Ms. Van Twyver?
Madam President, I'd like to just let the chairman of the policy committee know tonight that I will not be attending the meeting on November 5th.
Thank you, Ms. Van Twyver. Ms. Scales, I'm sorry, I just saw your hand. Hopefully it hasn't been up for too long.
You're good. I'm just requesting a rundown of what was passed and what was passed and what wasn't passed for each board meeting, because I was looking over state law today, and I mean, I guess I should have known this already, but it's my job to be a liaison between the board and the school, and I'm supposed to report what happens during school board meetings, not what happens, but the topics that we're talking about. And I was just gonna ask if I could have a rundown of everything that was passed and what was talked about during the board meetings.
Okay. So
It's in the minutes.
everybody in the public is entitled to that information on the district website. I use Google. I'm sorry. I just open up Google and Google everything. If you Google Board of Education, Nashua Board of Education minutes, it'll bring you to the minutes and you can read verbatim what happened. Alternately, you could look up Board of Education motions, and that will tell you all the motions that were put and what the vote was.
There's a file on
That's your best bet.
Yeah, there's a file on the board. There's a way to get to it through the website, but I I don't know, I just Googled
It
it.
goes back several years, so you got the history in one place.
Yep, so I find
For fun reading.
Googling takes me right there, and then you can read everything that was, all the motions, all the decisions. And anyone in the public can do that at any time. So, yay.
Yeah.
Ms. Timmons.
I made a motion to adjourn.
Okay. We had a motion earlier, but I lawlessly threw it out the window so I could talk. Motion to adjourn by Ms. Timmons. Seconded by Ms. Van Twyver. I assume this means nobody wants to go into non-public. So it's not debatable, so let's just take the roll.
On the motion to adjourn, Ms. Raymond,
Yes.
Mr. Coffman,
Yes.
Ms. Van Twyver? Yes. Mr. Greeno votes yes. Ms. Hohensee?
Yes.
Ms. Timmons? Yes. Ms. Porter?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
We are adjourned at 10:25 p.m.